My gavel's already at the other office, so use my fist. We're going to call the meeting to order of the Effingham County Board of Commissioners. This is January 4th, 2022 at 5:06 p.m. I'm going to have roll call. Mr. Loper.
Here.
Mr. Deloach.
Here.
Mr. Kiefer.
Here.
Mr. Burdette.
Here.
Mr. Floyd.
Here.
And of course, the chairman's here as well. With that, we're going to begin with our invocation. We're going to ask our vice chair if he would please give us an invocation. Ask if everyone can please stand for that and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance to our flag.
Bow your heads. Heavenly Father, once again, I want to thank you for this day. I thank you for the ribbon cutting ceremony that we had earlier, Lord, with the big blessing of that building, putting everyone together. Father, I pray that things move along smoothly with that and get everybody as one functioning unit over there for constituents and citizens, that they may have some seamless service from our county, Lord. We're just grateful for everything. We pray you bless each and every one of us here tonight. We're just grateful for all the staff and everyone does for us, and the people that work hard for Effingham County, and especially our constituents who just really take care of us with their voting rights from T-SPLOST and SPLOST, Lord. And I pray this all in Christ's name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the election of the vice chair. We always enjoy the entertainment that takes place when we try to figure out how to do this. So I'm going to let you give us some instructions on how you want us to proceed.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will hand out a ballot to each commissioner. You will select the commissioner that you wish to nominate for chairman, vice chairman, and you will sign it. Upon completion, then I will take up those ballots and then examine them one by one and announce the vote.
So we will not have a nomination from the floor.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes,
Okay.
you will have a nomination first.
Okay, and then we'll put our vote.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this time, I'll go ahead and ask for a nomination for vice chair for 2022. I know in the past we've had a history of trying to make sure everybody had opportunity. Is there a record of who was the vice chair prior to Commissioner Burdette?
Prior to Mr. Burdette, I think.
Jake.
Mr. Deloach? Okay. Has everyone had an opportunity to be the vice chair in the last, that wanted the opportunity?
That wanted the opportunity, right, yes.
And that means you can't repeat with the two that have been there. But just want to make that aware if there's others who want to be vice chair. This requires additional responsibilities of filling the desk here when I'm out and also signing documents on occasion when I'm not able to sign the documents. You need to be available to do that. Okay. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion for vice chair.
I'm sorry.
Entertain the nominee from the board for vice chair.
Yes, sir.
Oh, my God.
I'll do it, y'all. Nobody else.
I make a nomination that Commissioner Danny Dewitt be our vice chair.
That's fine.
Okay, I have a motion for Mr. Deloach and second by second for these nominations as well. Madam Clerk?
No, sir. No motion.
So we have a nomination of Mr. Deloach. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll close the nominations and I guess we'll cast our ballots and then pass them around to you.
Yes, sir.
She's going to need them.
That's the entertainment part. Secret, not so secret ballot.
Well, y'all are just so in sync, you know, it's not typical for most, so that's a good thing, that you are. Okay, Mr. Chairman, the nominations are as follows. Commissioner Burdette votes Commissioner Deloach. Commissioner Floyd for Commissioner Deloach. Chairman Corbett for Commissioner Deloach. Commissioner Deloach for himself. Commissioner Loper for Commissioner Deloach, and Commissioner Kiefer for Commissioner Deloach. Unanimous vote for Commissioner Deloach as Vice Chair for 2022.
Clean race.
It's a clean, tough race, but you know that. Oh, and I appreciate Mr. Lynch, he's always got extra, it takes extra time, doesn't have extra time, but it takes extra time to go to Atlanta. He's traveled with me, and he's traveled without me, and there's a lot of signing documents, so we appreciate his extra efforts that he puts into this board. So thank you for that. Next item is the approval of the minutes. Consideration to approve the December 7th minutes, 2021 regular session commission meeting minutes.
Can you back up, sir, to your agenda approval, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. You have the agenda. There's no corrections or additions to the agenda tonight, is there?
There is one, sir.
Okay.
Planning board item number 18 and number 19. The planning board recommends approving an application by Verizon Wireless as agent for Robert William Edwards Jr. for a variance located at 2441 Corinne Church Road to reduce the required distance of a telecommunications tower from a residence zoned AR1. This is map number 336, parcel number 4 in the 3rd district. 18 and 19 is the second reading. The applicant has requested this item be postponed to the February 15th meeting.
So this is from the table to the February 15th. February 15th, that date?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other corrections or additions to the agenda?
Yes, sir. Also, number 20 and number 21 relate to the same item. It is for a conditional use for Verizon Wireless. So it is items number 18 through 21.
Okay. Any other corrections or additions to the
No,
agenda?
sir.
All right. We have our agenda before us. We have a motion to approve the agenda with moving planning board items 18, 19, 20, and 21 to be tabled to the February 15th meeting. Is that a motion?
So moved.
to approve. All right. I heard Mr. Kiefer first, I think, on the motion. Is that right?
Deloach.
Okay. Mr. Deloach, and I'll take yours in a second, if that's okay. All right, second motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Loper. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, we have our agenda. Now we'll move to our minutes. Consideration to approve the December 7th, 2021 regular commission meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes as presented? Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Loper to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And it passed unanimously. We welcome our public tonight, all constituents who have joined us for this meeting. If you want to speak to the items tonight, please come to the microphone when you do. If you would state your name clearly for the record, and keep your comments to a couple of minutes. That makes it very supportive of others who want to comment on similar items. All the documents and correspondence for this meeting are in the clerk's office or on the Board of Commissioners website. You get a chance to review those and are prepared to make comment at the appropriate time. And with that, we'll move into our consent agenda. We have 4 items on our consent agenda. I'll read those, and then I'll entertain a motion at completion. Item number 1 in the consent agenda, consideration to ratify the approval of the probation service agreement with the City of Guyton. Item 2, consideration to ratify the approval of the probation service agreement with the City of Springfield. Item 3, consideration to ratify the approval of the probation service agreement with the State Court. And item 4 is consideration to ratify the approval of the probation services agreement with Superior Court. Any motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make motion to approve as read.
All right, motion by Mr. Roper, second by Mr. Burdette to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. And then we have a special recognition of a special young man that I've had the pleasure of knowing and hiking a little bit of the AT with him, the Appalachian Trail. We have local Eagle Scout, Evan Ziegler, who has built, as he managed with the other Boy Scouts, built some park benches out of concrete and donated them to different parts of the county. I'm going to ask if he would come up and his family that's with him, and our clerk has some things that she wants to read in honor of this moment tonight, and thank you so much. Would you like to come forward and maybe stand there at the podium so that we can, Evan has grown a little taller. When we used to go up the Appalachian Trail, all we could see was his backpack. Couldn't see his head, he was a little fellow. He used to call him a headless backpack. He's grown up.
Evan Ziegler is a 16-year-old high school junior at Effingham County High School. He's chosen an Eagle Scout project to benefit the community and our Effingham County parks. Evan is building concrete benches for citizens to enjoy while being outdoors. The benches will be created out of concrete by using form molds that he hand-built out of wood. The benches will be placed in McCall Park, Baker Park, Honora Park, and CEM Park, as well as a few local churches. There will be a small plaque on each bench with his name, Eagle Scout Project, and date on it. During this project, Evan has learned life skills such as financial planning, budgeting, managing people for a project, and communicating with others. He hopes many people will benefit from the benches throughout the county for many years to come. Donations for the project came from Thrivent and many other smaller donors. Evan is in Troop 665 at the Lincoln Methodist Church. His scoutmaster is Seth Ziegler. Let's give Evan a hand.
I want to personally thank you as well. This is one fine young man. You look at the badges he's got around his neck. He works very hard. You and your family both are a wonderful credit to this community. Thank you so much. And just pray that more of our young men will be like you. Most of you don't know that only about 2% of all the boys who start scouting, is that still the same number? Actually finished the Eagle Scout. And this is your last big project before getting your Eagle Award, I assume.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you for letting me put them in the local area.
No, thank you. We appreciate all that you've done. Thank you again, Evan.
Thank you.
All right, wonderful recognition. Thank you again to you and your family. We'll move to our old business consideration to approve this item number 1 under 12 of old business. 12.1, consideration to approve the second reading of ordinance to amend Appendix C, Article 5, U.S. permitted uses permitted in districts, Section 5.15 PD Planning Development Districts. This is a second reading, so I entertain a motion to approve the second reading. You have a motion to approve the second reading?
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Okay, motion, Mr. Burdette.
Second.
Second, Mr. Floyd. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. And the second reading is approved. Item number 2 under old business, section 12, is consideration to approve the second reading of application by Alex Metzger as agent for Randy Haddon, Jeremy Neese, and Chuck Hildebrand to rezone 52.84 acres from AR1 to B3 to allow for the development. Can we not restrict that? We're just doing the second reading on the B3, not allowance. We voted that down already.
So it follows what was presented in the original item, but what is stipulated in the motion is what defines the uses on the property.
Right, but we've already struck down the development container storage site what we approved, we had two, I distinguished that on the last agenda, and I took a motion and we had discussion and approved to a B3 with a certain variance that followed.
So what would you like to strike, sir?
It should say allow from AR1 to B3, and we get rid of because we're not doing it to allow for development, containers, facilities, freight terminal.
So you want to alleviate to allow for the development of
Right.
container storage
We have all
facility?
approved as AR1 to B3.
Perfect.
Correct, yep.
There is some discussion that we need to have.
Correct, and we can have that about the variance. It was a condition, so that's why we didn't do the second reading. We had a condition of the 300-foot variance. So we'll come back and revisit that with the discussion from the board
Yeah.
and see what we're going to do with that. So I'm going to read this again. We need a second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Metzger, agent for Randy Haddon, Jeremy Neese, Chuck Hill Grant, rezone 52.84 acres, AR1 to B3, located at 2361 Highway 80, map number 354, parcel number 21 in the first district. This was tabled at 1270. All right, now open for discussion before we take a motion to approve second reading.
Okay, I've talked with the applicants, and since there was a turn down of the conditional use, they'd like some relief on the 300-foot buffer that comes up against the George Road properties. In conversation with some of the other commissioners, there's two things we're looking at. They're willing, in good faith, to still offer a concession as far as the buffer up to 75 feet. However, you know, we've been accused of just choosing how we want to do this, and the ordinance reads 30 feet. So I want to discuss whether we follow our ordinance, rezone it from AR1 to B3, as the ordinance reads with 30 feet, or if we want to consider an additional buffer.
Personally, I think 30 feet, if that's what it is, it's what it is. They follow the ordinance, like, unless there's some kind of, and then if he wants to give them the extra footage, it's up to him. But I prefer to just follow our ordinance. If it's a B3 to 30, it's a B3 to 30.
Yeah, and I'll obviously support whatever the board feels is the right and most consistent way for the property owners and people around. But one concern that I have on these types of properties is that when they butt up residential areas, we always need to be conscious of how we move from industrial or commercial to the residential. So I'm with you on the 30 feet, I think it is a 35, whatever it is, buffer from normal B3 to B3 to B1, B2. That's good, but as you get to a nice residential area, any residential area, I think it is good for the commission to have a reason to consider a possible, not 300. I know that was considered because we thought they were trying to do containers that we believe would not be healthy for that area. But I'm not sure it would be wise to keep a 75-foot or something, so you have that transition of always trying to go from B to residential. And then when they come back with a site plan or something that maybe is more office friendly or not a convenience store that's going to have lights on the houses all night long, you can always reduce that back to what the ordinance says. It's just a thought, you don't do that way, but keep in mind that you're trying to protect and have a transition between commercial and residential. And there's always that. They keep coming, but when they connect, that's the only time you need to consider, do we adjust that buffer to that?
And I agree with that. I understand. It's just, do we impose that? Do we impose that at this one time, or do we follow our ordinance as it is and hope that they, if they do develop their property in good faith, maybe then they'll consider a further setback?
Yeah, that's just my only caution on here. That's a good rule.
What have we done in the past? What I'd be concerned with. Normally, if it butts up to AR1 or residential or R1, they normally require more, and we normally just follow the ordinance. I just want to be consistent.
But I think consistency would depend on the constituents as well. You may have one neighborhood that say wants a Dollar General, and they don't care if it's next to them, they like the convenience. You may have another neighborhood that says, no, we like a little more. It's just trying to find that consistency. You do have some constituents that came out and expressed concern for the commercial butting up against their long-standing residential property. Once again, I think the property owners who are building and developing this would probably work with the residents.
I go along with what Forrest said. I mean, that's more than we have to give, but we give them a little extra room there, which I think is good. I mean, we can treat everyone that comes before us the same differently. You know, we don't have to do every one of them the same way, just because the ordinance intended.
Right, you just need a reason for why you would create a variance. You don't ever need to do it willy-nilly.
Well, I know we're looking at changing the ordinance. I don't know where we're at as far as that side setback or between B3 and residential. I don't know where we're going to be. And I just, if we do decide tonight at 75 foot, I don't want that to influence future properties. This is a large piece of property. The next property may only be 10 acres and 75 foot, maybe cut back on what they can go.
Mr. Chairman, how you say it, it almost sounds as though the ordinance should say 75 feet, and then someone could ask for a variance to go back to 30. Does that make sense?
Yep, because of the type of
But
structure they're going to do.
right now, the ordinance says 30, so it's backwards.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, if we were gonna go along with that, I mean, I'd definitely like to see us amend our ordinance
Future
to clearly state that, so we're not all over the board.
I like that.
I mean, I think you have a good idea
Yeah.
about how we transition, but as we continue to grow, I think we need to spell that out in our ordinance, so we're not creating or something every time
Yep.
a request comes up.
We should have a variance every time you do something like this.
No, there should be some circumstances
So that you,
that would require the 75 feet. Are there?
I don't think there are. You know, what you're saying, it makes more sense if you have a B3 that's being zoned from AR to B3, or commercial, you need one B23. That perhaps it should be, if it's really next to residential, it should be 75 feet, otherwise.
Well, I just thought that was the number of
You can do that, yeah.
Let me ask you this, could we, if we approved it at 30 foot as the ordinance reads, if something they did propose a business of some kind that we think would impact the neighborhood, could that be addressed in the sketch plan brought to us?
Lee, can you help us with that? If it's a permitted use, could we still address it if we thought it was permitted use, you could?
If you approve it with the setback, that's what they have.
That's
You
right.
go back and change it.
You mean the buffer, not setback.
Yeah, but
Buffer. Now, that's why I was cautioned, since it's residential next to it, it might be good to be 75, because then you could go back and reduce it if they came with a request, but you couldn't expand it on. Is that fair?
I mean, you'd be doing that without the benefit of a hearing. I mean, that's,
I thought you-
our ordinance allows that right now.
Well, we have to do a hearing, I would assume, anytime we do a change to what the zoning is, right?
Correct, but if you're saying it's 75, depending on what type of development is pursued, I don't know that we've done that in the past.
I think he's saying that the sketch plan isn't a public hearing. It comes before you to be approved, but it's not a public hearing.
Correct, sketch plan, but if they want, if in that sketch plan they ask for a variance on that 75 foot, I would think you'd have to have a public hearing to get that variance.
As a variance.
Right, and so, you know, that makes you muddy the water, but they'd have to come back for another hearing to go from 75 to 30. So, anyway, that's just my caution, if you think it's better to stick to the current ordinance and change it at one time.
And again, in good faith, I believe that if there was something coming, that they would try to, again, be neighborly and not put a business that could be negative, have a negative impact on those folks.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, if there's other comments, we'll listen to those. If not, I'm going to get some direction from our attorney here. If the motion tonight is to approve the second reading, but we're going to go back to the ordinance buffer of 30 feet, would that require to put the second reading off another meeting, or can we go and do that to change that condition to that?
I don't know if there'll be any for another meeting.
So if we change that condition, does that require another reading?
If we just strike what we said to strike, to rezone from AR1 to B3, it's follow the ordinance. The only stipulation I still want to put on there is that there, no matter what, there still will not be any traffic off of that commercial property onto George Road.
Was that one of the conditions that we previously put on there?
Sure.
I think it was. I think there were two conditions.
I think that was already there. But I want that to remain.
Okay.
It's already in this here.
Okay, so, Ms. Johnson, if we could do this, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the second reading with that condition. No access,
No access on the George Road.
George Road, but striking the other condition of a 300-foot buffer.
So moved.
And all any other stipulations for
All
this.
There was a stipulation on resurvey, on a recombination. Remember, with the property line was required to, you need to make sure you recapture that, I guess.
Yeah, all the other conditions will stay in effect. Just the 300-foot buffer is going to be removed in the second reading. So the motion is to approve second reading, we're keeping all conditions in effect that were at the first hearing, excluding the 300-foot buffer.
Correct.
Mr. Ford is making that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdette. Any discussion? I thought I heard Mr. Burdette second. He's got some more, I'm sorry. Thank you much. All right, motion Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Deloach. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And it passes. We have our second reading, AR 1B3. Okay. Moving to our new business. This is item 13.1, consideration to ratify approval of quote number 1619295 from Motorola Solutions for the purchase of 5 radios and appropriate equipment for the ambulance for EMS.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Allison Bruton, purchasing agent. So these radios are for the new ambulances which have been purchased. Motorola's had a 10% cost increase on their products, but they did say that they would honor these prices because we got the quote before the increase. So staff is recommending alternative 1, ratification of approval.
All right, any discussion or questions? Motion?
Make a motion to approve order number 1.
Motion by Mr. Ripper. Who said a second? I can't hear it. You. Second by Mr. Floyd. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 2, under new business consideration to approve a letter of intent for the lease agreement for 204 Franklin Street between Effingham County Board of Commissioners and the State Property Commission for the use by Department of Human Services, Department of Family and Children's Services. This is lease number 3362.
Yes, sir. So this is the new lease. It'll have an initial term of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022 with 4 annual renewal periods. The state's estimated the operating expenditures from actual operating expenses of other buildings within Georgia as compiled by the Georgia Owners and Manuals Association. The breakdown for all of that is in your packets. Staff recommends alternative 1.
All right, I'm having computer problems up here. My old computer went out, so I'm shifting to the new computer. Any questions or discussions on item number 2 of new business? Have a motion to approve alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Floyd to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item number 3, consideration to ratify approval of updates to the enterprise vehicle orders for multiple departments.
Yes, sir. So during a staff review of the vehicle replacement list from Enterprise, we did find that some vehicles have been included in the orders already that weren't specifically approved by the board. However, these vehicles were budgeted for and they were on the original list for replacement. We also had the 4 prison vans that were approved previously by the board are no longer available for a couple of different reasons. So we've got 2 new vans included in your packet, and we also have a truck for parks and landscaping as well.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Do you have a motion for alternative 1?
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Deloach to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item number 4, to do business consideration to ratify approval for the order of additional finishing options to the admin copier and lease of a new copier for HR from Rico for the new administration complex.
Yes, sir. This is just ratification of approval. We did have a slight shift with some printers, so we needed to order an additional finishing option for the admin copier and a new copier for HR. Staff's recommending alternative 1.
All right, any questions or discussion?
Make a motion to approve all number 1.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Webb, to approve alternative 1, second by Mr. Roach. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item number 5, under new business, consideration to approve resolution 22-001 for surplus of various items.
Yes, sir. The only item on this resolution is the patch truck.
Is it what?
The patch truck, the old one.
Will you replace that?
Finally got it. We finally got the new one.
Okay, good deal. All right, any questions or discussion? Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Floyd, to approve alternative 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item number 6, consideration to approve an agreement with I-13 Vertical LLC, DBA CJT Software for a new software program for Effingham County Probate Court.
Yes, sir. So the Effingham County Probate Court is currently working with 2 different software programs, PCIS and Sustain. And Sustain is outdated and will no longer be updated or supported. The Effingham County Law Library will pay for the initial startup fee for this, and then Probate Court will handle the monthly fees, which should be manageable with the budget that they have. Staff's recommending alternative 1.
Any questions or discussion?
Motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Kiefer, to approve alternative 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item number 7, consideration to approve a job description for the Director of Development Services.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is a slight organizational restructuring in the development services area. Currently, we have the assistant manager playing 3 roles here. One of them is the county engineer, the director of development services, as well as assistant manager. Additional departments unrelated to development services. Because of workload, and we thought it would function better if we split out that responsibility with regards to development services director. We were looking at an additional position there anyway, simply because there are job responsibilities with regards to project management solely related to development services that we feel will take up a good amount of time. So this position, the following department or areas will be reporting to, which is building inspection, permitting, building plan review, planning, GIS, and code enforcement. This is in addition to managing the day-to-day operations of those, they will be responsible for larger projects associated with development services, such as the code revamp, which is going to take approximately a year, as well as the update of the comprehensive plan and the preparation of the full update, the kind of interim update of the comprehensive plan once we have the code revamp, and then the statutorily update of the comprehensive plan in 3 years, integrating the transportation, solid waste, water and sewer, stormwater facilities, and parks master plans. So it's a good amount of work. This individual will also be the responsible for project management as related to developments, and will be the face of development as when those pre-planned review meetings come into place. And as you know, we've got many large developments, particularly commercials, that are coming underway, that we are looking to get somebody who can do a more active role in monitoring the process and approvals associated with them. So with that, I am requesting this additional position. It'll be under the Department of Development Services, reporting directly to me, but reporting indirectly, since he is the assistant manager and the engineer, also to these, to Eric Larson.
I like that it would take development services, could make him a little bit more of an advocate for the developer. So I think that's good to have that teaching within our own staff to help move things along development. If it does that, I think it would be a good success to complement our other engineering and so forth work. About the board, any questions, discussions?
Yeah, I like the idea as well, but I'd like to see minimum qualifications, just the engineering degree if we're going to fill in for the engineer. In absence. And I think if the knowledge required of this, so you've got a business administration degree, you're not going to know anything about engineering. And some of these degrees that are minimum are not going to fill a void that we've got here.
Well, and that's one thing I probably should clarify is that Eric will still remain as the county engineer. So when it comes to those pre-plan review meetings, he will be represented there as the county engineer, reviewing them on that basis. It just won't be administering the department in addition to doing that. He'll continue in that role.
I see what you're saying. I mean, to limit that, put that qualification in really shrinks, I
Right.
think it does. On the funding, would that not come out of the enterprise fund?
Yeah, it does, and I apologize for that.
Because that department,
Yeah, it says general fund, and thank you for reminding me on that. It is an enterprise fund, which is funded essentially by the permitting fees and et cetera associated with the department. And there is ample funds to continuously fund this position.
That satisfy your question, because, I'm more interested in myself in that person who understands code and development. A little bit of an advocate for the developer, although looking out for the interest of the county. We've got engineers looking at site plans, inspections, and so forth. I think it'd be a good tension, healthy tension balance, is a better word, as we try to move toward, friendly development, and while still keeping the highest standards.
because in my experience, nothing against the engineers, but sometimes they're too engineer-oriented into something like this, and you may need, something a little more broad or not yet.
But the business administration, you're out.
Yeah.
You're out.
Yes.
We'll talk about
Okay.
we should eliminate engineering. We should eliminate the engineering degree altogether and focus on that.
We're still requiring an engineering degree at this point.
Well, it's minimum qualifications, it could be an engineer, an architect, planner, a lot of different fields.
I leave it open, that you may find the right person that has those things, that's just a plus, but we make it required.
Correct.
Any other question, discussion from the board? Mr. Jack, you want to comment?
Yeah, Jack Golden, Cloud, Georgia. What is this going to cost us?
The starting on this pay band is a director level, I believe it's $76,000.
The annual salary is $76,000.
Yes. But obviously, it's for 6 months or less for this year, so the effect's going to be a lot lower this year. But on an annual basis, starting next year,
And that's
it'll
insurance
be.
and all the benefits, is $58,000 for 6 months. And once again, this is enterprise fund, so it's going to be funded from the revenues of the development and construction and so forth. So it won't be taxes to our constituents, no additional taxes there.
Nor does it take away funds that could go to offset our property tax. Those funds can never go to intermingle
Yep.
and help us on the other side. So,
And will make us more efficient. I believe, in operation. It's a very good discussion. I do have a motion to approve alternative one.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Kiefer to approve alternative one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. It brings us to item number 8, consideration to approve resolution 22-002 to amend the 2021-2022 fiscal budget.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Barnes, Finance Director. Staff is requesting approval for an amendment to the fiscal year 22 budget. This amendment covers multiple items, including some contracts and change orders and grant awards that were approved in some prior commissioners' meetings. The 10th item on this list, the additional water meters, that item has been removed from the revised resolution and isn't needed at this time. Staff is recommending alternative number 1, approve the resolution.
Are there any questions or discussions from all? We have a motion to approve
Make a
alternative.
motion to approve all number one.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Loper, second, Mr. Floyd, to approve alternative one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item number 9, consideration to approve to submit a grant application to the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, Local Emergency Management Performance Grant Program.
Staff is requesting approval to submit this grant. This is a $15,600 grant. The county applies for it almost every year, and most years we are awarded this grant. The Effingham EMA department wants to use this grant this year for equipment. So if approved and awarded, there would at some point be a future budget amendment to add this, the matching $15,600 that the county would have to pay. And the alternative number 1 is to approve the submittal of this grant application, and staff is recommending that alternative.
Question or discussion? Motion to approve alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdette, to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 10, consideration to approve notification of intent of a railroad crossing closure at Dewitt Road and seek public input. Once again, this is a consideration to approve notification of intent. This is not a vote to close this railroad tonight. This is a misunderstanding about that. Mr. Hill.
Yes, sir. Good evening, it's Eric Larson, Assistant County Manager. Thank you. This is, yes, an intent to consider the closing of the Dewitt Road Railroad crossing in northern Effingham. The county is desiring to create a new railroad crossing on the Norfolk Southern Railroad in order to promote growth in a growth area. The Norfolk Southern requires a commitment from the community to close an existing crossing due to Federal Railway Administration requirements. The program of the Federal Railway Administration is to identify crossing locations that are considered redundant, where they have lower traffic volumes or safety issues. Dewitt Road was selected because it is skewed and lacks active warning systems. The alternative access is via Shawnee Road, which is less than a half-mile detour from and it has active warning systems. So we're recommending that Dewitt Road be recommended for closure. As Mr. Corbett stated, this is just an announcement of our intent. We have in your packet a letter that will be sent out to the property owners in the immediate vicinity of our intent. We're going to give this a 30-day public comment period, and your earliest opportunity to potentially vote on this will be the February 15th meeting, since the February 1st meeting is likely to be canceled later in this agenda. So the 15th would be the first opportunity to do a vote to officially close. And staff is recommending approval of the intent to close so that we can start that process.
What would the new one be? We're going to create a new one, in order to create a new one after one.
Gateway Parkway.
What?
Gateway Parkway connects Hodgeville and McCall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other question or discussion? Do you have a motion to approve the notification of intent? Because if the board's not going to intend to seek approval from the constituents, then they don't want to consider it. So that's all we're doing. Do you have a motion to approve notification of intent? for the railroad crossing, closure of Dewitt Road.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dewitt, second by Mr. Who said second? Mr. Whipper. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item number 11, consideration to approve an addendum to Resolution 21-048 to extend a moratorium on rezoning for multifamily housing and R6 single-family residential development for a period of 30 days.
Mr. Chairman, there is a slight correction in that it is a resolution for 022-003. It is not an addendum. We opted to approve a new resolution.
Okay, so this is not, this is a new resolution. It is number 022-004.
Yes, -003.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
So I know we're going to have discussion tonight on the information so we can move forward and getting it. That's going to give us time to do it. So do I have a motion to approve the resolution 022-003 to extend the moratorium on rezoning for multifamily housing and R6 single-family residential development for a period of 30 days.
Well, the second reading we had tonight, does it cover most of this? Not all of it.
We're going to have a discussion, then we'll present to us and we can have input tonight, then we'll come back with an approval of new ordinance on zoning and whatever.
Yeah.
That's just discussion. And input from the board tonight. Maybe some
So
things-
why we need 30 more days? They've already had 120 days. I mean, what's the hold up on it?
Well, if we give this, we'll give input tonight, and then they'll come back, I would hope, at the next meeting with the final approval.
And we could, I mean, if for whatever reason gets approved quicker than that, you know, if there's a few day lag, we can obviously terminate the moratorium. This is essentially.
When does the moratorium run out?
January 21st.
January 21st.
But what I'm saying is the PD portion, we've approved the second reading earlier in the meeting, right?
Yeah, but the PD portion now gives folks an option who are kind of stuck under the moratorium to have an option to do kind of a higher density a project or multifamily project because we've lowered the threshold on the acreage for the planned development. But if this were to expire before we put the replacement requirements in for R6 and R3, then the old rules, which are effectively not many rules, would then be implemented, would be re-implemented until we got the new changes in effect.
We may have
We may not have an R6.
Right, and one of the options.
Okay, that's what
But if it
I guess.
expired, someone could make an application for R6 and we got to go through that same process.
I see, we have not.
Yeah.
And so-
Right now, the alternative is a PUD that we can approve, they will see, density.
I see.
So now with the moratorium in place, folks have an option because you all approved the second reading of the PD amendment. And now for folks who wanted to traditionally do an R6 or an R3 can come through and do it through a PD, which they couldn't unless they had a ample land before.
Because R6 could permanently end up there.
Correct, right.
That may be.
And that's one of the things, we do have a draft from the consultant, and that's one of the things we wanted to discuss, is whether or not we wanted to put more restrictions and leave R6 in place, or simply eliminate it and fold it into a PD. So they've given us the option on the more restriction, and the restrictions that we're basing it on are basically the feedback that we've received from you all and from our communications as part of the larger group that we've been working with regards to open space, recreation, amenity opportunities, homeowner associations, that sort of stuff.
But the moratorium we're addressing is we don't extend it on the 21st of this month. somebody can make application for R6, and we've got to in that same attitude, evaluating is it best for our community.
But with the second reading tonight, they now have an outlet.
That's right.
That pressure, there's,
They have a way to do some density while we're working on.
and hopefully it's somewhat resemblance of the way it'll end up in some form of fashion.
Exactly. Everybody pretty clear? All right, go ahead.
So if somebody wants to turn out a R6 now, we can move forward on it?
No, if someone cannot do R6 right now, we got a moratorium, but they can go through a plan development and get similar.
Get the same thing.
That's right.
Well, right, with some
More or less.
heightened recreational areas, green spaces, things that we were all concerned about that the current R6 zoning does not address appropriately.
They still get what they want done, it just adds on.
Why didn't we have this done before now? Why didn't we do it before the 120 days was up?
Well, they had a firm looking at it, and I guess it took them a while to, come up with all the recommendations.
That's a long time.
It is a long time. We won't do it right though. They have an avenue. We gave them an avenue to a PD. We're not going to hold up anybody that wants to develop their high density land. Just trying to be consistent so that when we get this approved, it will not take the board's involvement at every level. They'll have some zones in which they can do things, and they know what they can do without waiting to hear from us. So I think 30 days just gets us to the next meeting. And
And keep in mind that if the ordinance goes through 2 readings, no matter what, we're going beyond, from this point, we're going beyond the 21st. So if we have something for you at the next meeting, we could get first reading done, and then the next meeting will be the first meeting in February. So, it's just a little bit of a gap. We're not asking for the full another 120 days or something, just something that we think we have a proposal now from the consultant that we think matches what you're all looking for, but we just kind of want to get that feedback from each of you. So
I knew that first time frame was pretty aggressive.
what?
I knew the first time frame was pretty aggressive on it.
to find someone to do it and then get it done and get it back to us and let's go over it. 31 days would be good, I think. Any other discussion?
What were the key differences between an R6 and a PUD?
A PUD, they come to you with a planned community development, and that becomes the zoning of that acreage, okay? And so the commission has the ability to speak into the quality and the character of that development.
Could it be as many as an R6 in a PUD? I'm just curious why we need
Yes.
both.
Yeah, yes.
Why do we need both? Do we need something that says an R6 is a definitive thing to do?
I don't think we do. That's just me personally. We'll get through that when we get through with
You may not
the
need R6.
Exactly.
That's right.
I don't even need an R6.
And that's kind of what we wanted to get the feedback from you all, is that we could do a more restrictive R6, or we can eliminate it altogether and go right and say, here's anything that's higher density than an R2 can go through the PD process, and here are the requirements, the general requirements, so they have guidance when they submit a PD text to us of what we're looking for.
It looks like we're trying to duplicate an R6 PUD, pretty much.
Right.
Well, there's not really an R6 PUD.
There's not.
I mean,
what we're trying to do is
yeah.
the restrictions of the PUD in an R6, which we already had in the PD.
Well, I think as you read through what the consultant's given us, he talks about the R6,
That's right.
the single-family dwelling, and all these can be involved in the planned community. You may have some 6 densities, some single-family dwelling, and some commercial. So the planned development can bring all or 2 of those items together. And so you could draw from those different zonings, and it's already set the guidelines for the recreational green space for that section. You know what I'm talking about? So
You're stipulated.
yeah, so it may give you some guidance for a developer who can start at least with some boundaries of what I need to bring in a planned community that the commission would consider. If they come with no boundaries and no guidance then they don't know what we're looking for. So there may be reasons why we want to leave those in there.
That makes sense to me. If you could abide on an R6 that we developed, then you don't need to be face-to-face so many different times and
Yeah, if you've got the green space recreation, like I noticed, it has in there, the association, legal association has to be in there to take care of the green spaces and all. That's all in there that we didn't have before. So if they can meet those requirements, do we want to come back to us? It's not going to be a mixed use. You know, if it's just going to be density, and we can get it into the RAs. You notice the discussion from 6 to 4. So it's not as dense as
Cookie cutter PD, basically.
kind of like a cookie cutter PD. And then when you get to the higher density, you know, stacking and so forth, you definitely want the PD. So there's more restrictions on this R6. But we may decide if we want to pull it out, because I know we had that discussion before. But you can see right now, the discussion, I can see yesterday's too.
Yeah, I can see from a developer standpoint where there'd be a time where, okay, I know I can go do this and have it reasonable.
One thing for certain, R6 as it is today,
It's not as bad.
It's not good, yeah. Or they can say, you know, I want some single family, I want some multi-family, I want some commercial. They can take these improved zoning regs and go ahead and build us a PUD of mixed use, right?
Right.
And match some of the things we've already said we wanted. Yeah. So I think we see one of them for the extra days.
And we actually have one of those coming up next.
We might have in 60, but they got an avenue. We're not going to slow down development. They go to a PUD.
Right.
And they can read the documents we're presenting now, and that gives them some ideas as they are developing their communities. So hopefully we're not going to slow anything down.
That's right, and we have a PD going through the process right now. It met the acreage requirements, so it didn't require this amendment to happen first, but we have a PD that's occurring now, that's going up, I think, I'm planning this month, and then it should be in front of you all at the first meeting in February, so you'll kind of get an idea of the process as well by going through it, but that's a mixed use.
All right, so I'm going to call for a motion. I'm going to read this since the alternative one was the old addendum. I'm going to read a motion to consider to approve resolution 022-003 to extend moratorium on rezoning for multifamily housing and R6 single-family residential development for a period of 30 days.
So,
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Burdette. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it's extended for 30 days. Item number 12, consideration to approve funding and payment to Clover Point Development LLC for reimbursement for the design and construction of a sanitary sewer lift station at New Haven at Belmont Lake.
Good evening again, it's Eric Larson, Assistant County Manager. In March 17, 2020, the Board of Commissioners approved a development agreement with Clover Point to pay for half of the design cost and 100% of the construction cost of the sanitary sewer lift station. The funding for that was set aside and established with the water bonds, and it is available. The final costs were not known at that time. The agreement had limits on that, and those limits are listed within the agreement as attached in your packet. The final cost on the design and construction is $359,733.30, and they have completed construction, and we are in the process of accepting the lift station, which was one of the conditions that we would reimburse them at that time. Staff is recommending approval of that funding for reimbursement for that work.
Okay, so that project's complete?
Yes, sir.
It's up and running?
Yeah, it's not in service yet because there's no houses in there yet, but we're in the process of closing out. You'll probably see the subdivision come through on the next agenda or two. We'll have that subdivision will be complete, and we'll be accepting the infrastructure at that time.
And we had talked about a certain amount of permits. Has that been purchased?
It was 30 permits or acceptance of the lift station. And again, the lift station is done and ready to be accepted. So we're going to be reimbursing prior to the 30 permits.
Okay, I'm not following.
The agreement was we would reimburse them.
Station.
Yes.
But they were to buy so many permits in order for us to go ahead and get rid of the old agreement and bring that sewer up to that point, have that done. Am I forgetting something?
The way the agreement was read is that we would reimburse them for the construction costs at the time one of two things happened. Either they have applied for their 30th permit or we've accepted the lift station for ownership.
Okay, so they're still going to buy the 30 permits?
Yes, sir.
They just
Yeah.
haven't bought it yet?
They just haven't bought them yet. Right.
Okay. All right. I'm with you. All right, good. Any other question, discussion?
This is the county share, it's not supposed to exceed 159,000 on the contract.
That was for the design cost,
Oh, just a design?
and the design cost was far less than
It doesn't
159.
say that, this says county, on the design cost, it does. I see.
Yeah, I remember sitting down and discussing that, and having looked at the agreement in a while, but I remember saying that, because there was an obligation under the old agreement for us to provide that sewer form, but there was some other issues that they did not do.
Right.
We used to compromise, we said, we bring it if you give us some permits and help us fund it, and we'll support it.
And so kind of get back the permit part of it.
Yes,
Okay.
that helps take care of some of that 359,000.
That's a big one.
Yeah, but I think, was it over 100? How many developments, lots in there?
You remember how many New Haven's got? It's way over 30.
300.
300 units.
300, yeah, so we're more than getting it back.
Right. Few more than 30.
Yeah, if you want to, it'll go a long ways anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Motion for alternative one?
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barrett, second by Mr. Floyd for alternative one. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed, no. Hearing no no's, it passes unanimously.
Yeah, 6 o'clock, it's after 6.
All right, thank you. We're at item number 12, we're going to pause there. I've got just a few more items. Is there anyone here that's on this business that we're going to hold up tonight, though? Is anyone here for item number 13 through 16? A new business. A new business? Huh? Staff, yes. I read that here. I still want to hold somebody up that's waiting to make a question about the contract. So with that, we'll move down to our planning board items for that. As the board need a brief breath break, are you okay?
Table 18 through 21.
Yeah. Planning board.
Okay. I don't know if somebody came in later who did that.
Well, I got you, yes. If you're here tonight for items 18 through 21 of planning board, those will not be heard tonight. They'll be heard at the next meeting. So the table those 18 through 21. All right, we'll plunge on with our planning board, see if we can knock these out. If we need a break, just let me know, and we'll take a 5-minute break then later. You need 5 minutes? All right. Need 5-minute break, bathroom break. If you need a bathroom, constituents out here to the left is the bathroom. Men's here and ladies around the corner. And if everybody be back in place in 5 minutes, we'll try to knock this out. Be done.
I'll take care of it.
I was going to have to go take a picture, but we'll wait till it's in. It's kind of the thing that I'm out because, like how the main man. This is the Eagle Stack. That freaks me out. Yeah, I'm not part of the club, guys. I'm an Eagle Scout.
So that was his intention.
Oh, you took out our hair. You realize, first of all,
She turned her into Jason and now she's not.
but we're not supposed to be supporting anyone. There's another choice grade. The one who ran and if anything, I think we should invite now, first of all, I can't. Listen.
I need to learn to stay in my lane. I thought that gift was pretty accurate.
He did announce that if you want, I would be, because I can inform all of them that's going on. But just to inform him, I don't think entry fees. The Republican thing, but he'll be there. He's primary. It is May, but I'm not sure. And no, by the way, I guess we're going to have slow music. But I'll confirm that from you. Unless you give us a different day. Maybe. It's always the same. On the 10th, right? I'll tell you what I'll do. I don't like traffic. But anyway, I get through to your wife. You were gone. So maybe you're late to the airport. So I'll see you on the
Stephanie, are we on still?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to go to our planning board items. Sorry for the delay. The first item on the planning board agenda for the board tonight is the planning board recommends approving an application by MLRE Partners Land Company Incorporated for a sketch plan for Pine Grove, a 141-unit residential development on 16.95 acres located at Highway 30, Zone R3, map number 376, parcel number 16 in the first district.
This parcel was rezoned a few meetings back, and this is the sketch plan. So this is an enhancement of the concept plan that you saw during the rezoning process, and it includes all of the provisions that were included in the conditions for the rezoning, and it sort of illustrates what the conditions were. And some of the highlights are that there'll be 2 parking spaces at each dwelling with an additional parking equal to 50% of the dwelling units. So there's an additional 73 parking spaces throughout the neighborhood to ensure that not only 2 houses per residence, but also an additional 73 can be accommodated, which is should be sufficient to meet their needs. A centrally located clubhouse and mail kiosk, 3 playground areas, picnic area, dog park, and a walking trail. The community will have a street lighting plan. Building facades will be comprised of a mixture of brick and vinyl siding. Traffic study will be required to identify any necessary improvements on Highway 30. And the sketch plan was included in the packet, so if you have any questions, Mr. Burr is here to answer.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Let's see. The developers here might be ready to answer either.
It looks pretty straightforward. I appreciate you putting the effort into to address
Yes, sir.
the concerns we had.
Yeah, it looks good. It's like you incorporated a lot of things that the community is asking for.
Yep, I think we hit everything. So I appreciate y'all's help on this and working with me on this one.
With that, I make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdette to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, sketch plan is approved.
Okay, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Item number 2 in the planning board is a public hearing. The planning board recommends approving an application by Drayton Parker Company LLC as agent for Ernest C. Slater to rezone 4.67 acres located between US Highway 80 and Highway 17 south from AR1 to B3 to allow for the development of a convenience store and fueling station. This is map number 378, parcel number 41 in the first district. We'll look at our public hearing, listen to Teresa first.
No, this parcel itself is currently zoned AR1. I'm going to push forward to the zoning map. You'll see that to the right of it there is a parcel that's currently zoned B3, and the parcel we're talking about tonight will be combined with that to accommodate a Parker's convenience store, gas station, and diesel pumps. So that is the request. So there's a few steps to this, but it's necessary to rezone the one with the red arrow in order to combine it with the one that's already B3. This is in an area that is not, where county water and sewer is not available, so private well and septic system will be necessary. A traffic study will be required, and we would expect if for the entrances onto Highway 80, encroachment permits from GDOT will be required before the land disturbing permit would be approved at the staff level. I'm not sure if Daniel is here tonight. I think he may have been planning to call in. So the applicant's representative may be on the phone.
Is the applicant representative on the phone? Tim, you want to check?
No, he's not there.
Not there.
But I can probably answer any questions. This went through planning board, there were no particular concerns. Some of the folks further up, that on Highway 80 that were at the meeting for the Tanger rezoning did have some questions, but they were all like, this is really just a matter of using that intersection, extending an existing B3 parcel into the adjacent to be able to accommodate a convenience store. One thing that is notable and really not relevant, but just down the road to the east is an existing Parker's, and as our Woodward building inspectors noted today, that's the only one in the county that doesn't have hot food available, and the representative assured me that one of the reasons they're building one here is to incorporate one of their neighborhood kitchens. So our building inspectors will be able to get hot food and stuff anyway.
Of course, this is your area, right?
It's also in there.
Got food, okay, it's pretty. All right.
It's in the racetrack.
All right. Sounds like there's no major questions or discussion from the board.
Anybody else wants to speak? Is there anybody else?
That's a good point. I've got a cold, so I'm not all the way tonight. Anybody here speaking for this rezoning request? Thanks for the reminder. This is a public hearing. Anyone not speaking in opposition to this request? Hearing none, I will officially close the public hearing now. I'll entertain a motion from the commission.
I make a motion to approve the request to rezone the 4.67 acres from R1 to B3 with the attached conditions.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Kiefer. Okay. And I'll note that is alternative one.
Yes.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes. We'll do the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Drayton Parker Company LLC as agent for Ernest C. Slater, requesting to rezone 4.67 acres located between U.S. Highway 80 and Georgia Highway 17 South from AR1 to B3 to allow for development of a convenience store and fueling station. This is map number 378, parcel number 41 in the first district. Motion to approve the second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Whipper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item number 4, the planning board, another public hearing. The planning board recommends approving the application by Raymond and Cassandra Polanco to rezone 10 acres located at 1379 Low Ground Road from AR1 to AR2 to allow for future subdivision, creating residential lots under 5 acres. This is map number 393, parcel number 22 in the 2nd district. We'll open a public hearing and hear from our zoning administrator first.
So this parcel is 10 acres, it's zoned AR1. The applicants wish to split it into 3 parcels, and they have provided a plat, but I don't have it on the PowerPoint, I'm sorry. But they're basically just going to split it into 3 parcels. That's something that has been done in other large parcels along the Ground Road. And in order to do that, they must be zoned to AR2 as no parcel. Only one of the parcels will remain 5 acres, but they wanted to rezone everything to AR2, so that is their wish.
They'll have to come back later, I guess, with the easements or right-of-ways for the roads to get back to those back parcels. Yeah.
Right, actually, and they did provide a draft of the survey, and it does show appropriate easements to the rear parcel.
Okay. I'll open a public hearing. Anyone speaking for this rezoning tonight?
They won't be here tonight, they're celebrating family vacation, or family birthday.
Okay. Hearing no one speaking for it, anyone speaking in opposition to this rezoning from AR1 to AR2? Seeing and hearing from no one, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve alternative 1.
I'll make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Floyd to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. At the second reading, this is item 5, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Raymond and Cassandra Polanco to rezone 10 acres located at 1379 Low Ground Road from AR1 to AR2 to allow for the future subdivision creating residential lots under 5 acres. This is map number 393, parcel number 22, 2nd district. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Keeper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item number 6, under public hearings, the planning board recommends approving an application by Donnie Neese to rezone 2.56 acres located at 285 Hodgesville Road from AR1 to AR2 to allow for an adjustment to the property lines, map number 415, parcel number 23 in the second district. Open the public hearing and hear from Ms. Teresa first.
So that red oval there shows the property line that they wish to adjust. They'd like to, there's an AR1 parcel and AR2 parcel, and they want to shift the property line in and make what's currently the AR1 parcel a little larger. Down the road, he may split that, but at this time, he just wants to rezone it so that both of his parcels are AR2, and you can have the freedom to decide how he wants to handle it in the future.
Okay, thank you. Anyone tonight speaking in favor of this rezoning from AR1 to AR2?
That's my portion.
Okay. You don't have to speak for it if you want to. I'll see if there's any opposition that you might want to. Is there any opposition tonight for AR1 to AR2 for this parcel? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do you have a motion for alternative 1?
I'll make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Loper to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And it passes unanimously. We'll do the second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Donnie Neese to rezone 2.56 acres from AR1 to AR2 to allow for an adjustment to the property line located at 285 Hodgesville Road. This is map number 415, parcel number 23, the second district. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Burdette, second, Mr. Floyd, to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. And so it's resolved. Item number 8, in the public hearings, the planning board recommends approving an application by Dennis L. Hammock as agent for William Jenkins to rezone 2 of 8.5 acres located at 1510 Goshen Road from AR1 to AR2 to allow for the separation of a home site, map number 434, parcel number 3 in the second district.
Okay, so this is similar. There are currently 2 parcels, and that red oval shows you the 2 parcels. And essentially, that property line is disappearing, and a new one, a new home site is being created here, so the remainder can be put into Clover. So really, we're starting with 2 parcels, we're ending with 2 parcels, they just look different. And the new parcel is smaller, so it's going to be, it needs to be rezoned to
Okay. We have a public hearing open. Is there anyone speaking in favor of this request from AR1 to AR2? Anyone speaking in opposition to this request for AR1 to AR2? Seeing and hearing from no one, I'll close the public hearing and enter a motion for alternative 1.
I'll make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Floyd to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. We'll have a second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Dennis L. Hammock as agent for William Jenkins to rezone 2 of 8.5 acres located at 1510 Goshen Road from AR1 to AR2 to allow for separation of a home site, map number 434, parcel number 3 in the second district. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Keeper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to excuse myself from this next one for potential conflict of interest.
Okay. Clerk will note that Mr. Burdett's excused himself for conflict of interest. Item number 10, potential conflict of interest. The planning board recommends approving an application by Janice Z. Bevel and Kathy Z. Zitrauer and Alan B. Zipper request to rezone 76.84 acres located on Hodgesville Road from AR1 to I1 for future industrial use map number 434, parcel number 24 in the second district. Open a public hearing and hear from Ms. Teresa first.
All right, so this may seem like deja vu. A few meetings ago, you approved the rezoning of this parcel here to industrial. So now the request is for this parcel here. This one has frontage on Hodgeville. It does not, it will not intersect with the Effingham Parkway, so that's just a note. And the request from the family is to rezone this, because on the north side, it's already industrial. On the south side, though, as you see in the southeast, there is a residential subdivision, so that did lead to some extra scrutiny. And the only comment really is that it's a very narrow parcel, and so with a 300-foot buffer, that would be required for the most part. I mean, depending on whether it's light or heavy industrial uses, that the usability of that portion is pretty limited, but that is, there's obviously if they combine it with some adjacent parcels, they may get more utility out of it. But from a zoning perspective, it's surrounded, on the north side by other industrial. It's just there is a concern that it's so close to that subdivision there. But there is, the buffer, obviously buffer requirement would.
Yeah, you'd still have a 300-foot buffer from their property line back to any industrial construction.
Right, depending on the use. So for heavy industrial, it's 300 feet. For light industrial, it's 150 feet. So there's that.
We'll open the public hearing. We have open one. Is anyone speaking in favor of this rezoning tonight from AR1 to I1 that would like to speak? Would you like to speak? You want to wait and see if there's any opposition? Okay. All right. Is anyone tonight that would like to speak in opposition to this rezoning from AR1 to I1? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and see if there's any discussion. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
John had my computer messed up.
Okay. Any discussion? Do I have a motion to approve alternative one?
I'll make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Loper, to approve alternative one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. So we'll move to the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Janice Z. Bevel and Kathy Z. Zitrower and Alan B. Zipperer, requesting to rezone 76.84 acres located on Hodgeville Road from AR1 to I1 for future industrial use. This is map number 434, parcel number 24A in the second district. Motion.
Make a motion to approve second reading. Second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, second by Mr. Kiefer to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. So we've had the first and second reading for that property that is rezoned. Thank you. Item number 12, in the public hearing, the planning board recommends, Mr. Burnett is back. Did I miss something? No. Good? Okay. All right. Item number 12, the planning board recommends approving the application by Heather Arnold as agent for Martha J. Arnold, requesting to rezone 4.5 acres located on Center Drive and Exley Loop from AR1 to AR2 to allow for the recombination of parcels map number 451C and parcels 79, 80, and 81 in the second district. Open the public hearing and listen to Ms. Teresa first.
Okay, so these parcels are in a subdivision known as Goshen Hill Farms, and they're all zoned AR1. They all are about 1.5 acres each. And when we first spoke with Ms. Arnold, the original plan was to combine these three and then subdivide them into two. They are now, with both entrances being on Center Drive rather than Exley. But the plat that they provided today shows the final version of their plans, and this is the original subdivision plat. The final version of their plans is to actually only combine and then re-subdivide two. So they're just reconfiguring. This one will stay as it is. They're still rezoning it to AR2 because that's appropriate for the zoning district. These two, this is the original or existing property line, and what they're doing is removing that and then facing them onto Center Drive. That is their preference. That's what they wish to do. So it's starting with, we're going to end up with the same number of lots. They're just two of them are slightly reconfigured.
Okay. So we've opened a public hearing. Anyone speaking in favor of this rezoning from AR1 to AR2? Would you like to speak or wait and see if there's any opposition? Okay. Anyone tonight speaking in opposition to this rezoning from AR1 to AR2? Seeing and hearing from no one, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for alternative one.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Loper to approve alternative one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. We'll have our second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Heather Arnold as agent for Martha J. Arnold. Request is on 4.5 acres located on Sanitary in Exley Loop, AR1 to AR2, to allow for a recombination of parcels. This is map number 451C, parcel number 7980 in the 2nd District. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Loper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 14, public hearing. The planning board recommends approving an application by Linda Nicole Roadwalk requesting a conditional use for a rural business, Nikki B's Hair Salon, located at 6916 Flyo Kildare Road, zone AR1, map number 229A, parcel number 17 in the 3rd District. Open a public hearing, listen to our zoning administrator.
So the rural business conditional use has 4 main criteria that we look at in these kind of cases, and they are, the first one is intent, and this is a small scale hair salon that will serve the local community, which is exactly what rural businesses is supposed to help facilitate. The second, the structure, and in this case the business will operate out of the existing structure. There is frontage on a public road, Clover Kildare Road, and then the acreage of the 3 acre minimum is met because the property is 6.6 acres, so staff are recommending alternative one.
Okay. Anyone tonight speaking in favor of this conditional use? Would like to speak in favor, or you want to wait till there's any opposition?
I'll wait.
Okay. Anyone tonight speaking in opposition to this conditional use request? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for alternative one.
I'll make a motion to approve the request with staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dewitt, second Mr. Kiefer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And it passes unanimously. Item number 15, consideration to approve a second reading of an application by Linda Nicole Roadwalk requesting a conditional use for a little business, Nikki's B's Hair Salon, located at 6916 Flyo Kildare Road, zone AR1, map number 2298, parcel number 17, 3rd District. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dewitt, second by Mr. Loper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. You have your real business use. Item number 16, planning board recommends approving an application by Daniel W. Ron as agent for Sean Everett Ron to rezone 15 acres located at 2627 Old Louisville Road from AR1 to AR2 to allow for the creation of a home site, map number 251, parcel 1A in the 3rd District. Open the public hearing, and let Ms. Teresa speak first.
So as you said, this 15 acres is AR1. The applicant wishes to subdivide 1 acre parcel at the front there on Old Louisville Road, and for that he is rezoning that to AR2.
Okay. Anyone tonight speaking in favor of this AR1 being zoned AR2? Anyone tonight speaking in opposition to rezoning from AR1 to AR2? Seeing and hearing from no one, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dewitt, second by Mr. Loper. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Have a second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Daniel W. Ron as agent for Sean Everett Ron to rezone 1 of 15 acres located at 2627 Old Louisville Road from AR1 to AR2 to allow for the creation of a home site, map number 251, parcel 1A in the 3rd district. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Loper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item 18, 19, 20, and 21 have been tabled, so we'll move down to item number 22. The planning board recommends approving an application by Paul Arends.
Aaron's. Yes,
Is that right?
Aaron's.
So good. For a variance located at 1445 Old Dixie Highway to waive the 150-foot frontage requirement for an AR1 zone parcel. Currently zoned R1, proposed zoning AR1. This is map number 3064A, parcel number 36 in the 3rd district. We'll open a public hearing and begin with Ms. Teresa.
All right, so this is related to the next item on the agenda, which is to rezone this 0.9-acre parcel. But before we did that, we need to get a variance because of the frontage requirement. So the intent is to rezone this to AR1 so that it becomes, so that it can be combined with the parcel behind, which is a large timber tract. And in order, it is, this is currently used as an access into that rear parcel. This was actually going to be on your agenda about 6 months ago. The previous owner, the timber company, were getting this all sorted out before it sold, but apparently it sold without the need to continue, so they withdrew that from the board's agenda. But it's just exactly the same application. In order to combine these parcels, that front strip has to be rezoned. And in order to rezone it to AR1, we need a variance from the road frontage requirement. AR1 requires 150 feet. This is somewhat less than that.
So that piece of property there is less than 150 feet from the road.
It's less than 150 feet along the road front. So what we'll be doing is taking a landlocked parcel and combining it with a fairly narrow strip to give it road frontage, which is good for the owner. But in order to do that, it's a technicality really, but in order to combine those two parcels, we need a variance from the road frontage requirement for AR1, and then that parcel itself will have to be rezoned to AR1, but then the two can be combined so that the larger tract behind has
I got you.
a strip that...
I assume that the other larger tract probably has frontage somewhere, right? Oh, it doesn't? Okay. Well, it doesn't matter.
I was wondering, on the picture there, is that frontage down there, but I guess it doesn't. Okay, we're in a public hearing. Anyone speaking in favor of this variance request? Would like to speak? Would you like to speak, or wait and see if there's any questions from the board? Okay, anyone speaking in opposition to this variance tonight? Seeing no one, we're hearing from no one, we'll close the public hearing, but if there's some questions from the board, I'll get you to come up and answer them. Any discussion from the board regarding this variance request? Hearing none, I entertain the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Kiefer, to approve the planning board and staff recommendations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. We have the second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Paul Arends for a variance located at 1445 Old Dixie Highway to waive the 150-foot lot frontage requirement for an AR1 zone parcel. Currently zone R1, proposed zoning AR1. This is map number 364A and number 36 in the 3rd district. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Loper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Okay. Item number 24, the planning board recommends approving an application by Paul Arends to rezone 0.9 acres located at 1445 Dixie Highway from R1 to AR1 to allow for the combination with adjacent parcel, map number 364A and parcel number 36 in the 3rd district. Open the public hearing, I don't think you need to say anything, we know what it's all about, so we got the information. Anyone tonight speaking in opposition to this request from R1 to AR1? I don't hear or see anyone. I assume you don't want to speak to it since there's no opposition. So I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Butler, to approve the staff and planning board recommendations. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Have the second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Paul Lorenz to rezone 9.9 acres located at 1445 Old Dixie Highway from R1 to AR1 to allow for combination with an adjacent parcel number 364A, parcel number 36 in the 3rd District.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Lover, to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item number 26, public hearing. Planning board recommends approving an application by Marchese, I never know how to say your name, there, brother. Construction LLC as agent for Tashikuki Harata, whoever, for a variance located on Georgia Highway 21 South to reduce the minimum number of parking spots required for a commercial development, Zone B3, map number 465N, parcel number 2 in the 5th District. So, we'll open the public hearing and consider it best here from Ms. Teresa first.
So this is done appropriately, and we received site development plans, and our engineers were reviewing them, but during the review process, a few issues came up, and in the approval letter, one of the conditions that needs to be, well, in order for full approval to occur, one of the conditions that needs to be met is to meet the county's parking space requirements, and the current plan does not meet our parking space requirement. There is not enough parking spaces proposed to meet our requirements. The applicant's engineer, who could not be here tonight, he did send an email, he was delayed. Or maybe he's not here.
Multiple parcels recommended there. I was thinking it was one. I mean, is there different dwellings, businesses?
It's part of a larger business tract, and in fact, believe access from
in the actual
here.
design there, I saw it divided. Is there different businesses?
This is the one we're talking about. Yeah, this is off 21. There's actually a private driveway running here into the apartment complex, and that's what will be used, one of the access points to this development, which will include a Seasons of Japan restaurant and 3 retail units in a strip center. There'll be other access from here. And so that's really not the issue. The issue is the number of parking spaces, because our ordinance requires, and I've got it highlighted in red here, in a restaurant, 1 for each 2.5 seats plus 1 for each 3 employees.
Say that again, for restaurants.
For restaurants, we require 1 for each 2.5 seats in the proposed seats in the restaurant, and plus 1 for each 3 employees. And so we don't actually know the number of employees, but we know the number of seats that have been proposed, and that is 78. So 31 plus parking spaces would be required right off the bat. And then there are 3 retail units also in that complex. And for those, we require 1 for each 300 square feet. So that's an additional 17, leading to a total of 48. The proposal is for, I believe, 32 spaces. At the planning board meeting, they did discuss maybe making the spaces narrower, and that would allow them to fit in maybe 3 or 4 more spaces, bringing it up to maybe 36. So they still will need a variance from our minimum requirement would be 48 spaces, and that's not even knowing how many employees. So really, technically, we would be requiring more. But because the applicant's engineer did come do a little research into adjacent jurisdictions and showed us what their requirements were, so we continued that and looked at a few more jurisdictions. And this table summarizes what we found, that in fact we're not really out to extreme at all in our requirements. We're very similar to other counties in the region. We're a little different from what the cities often require. But Bullock County, for example, would require 26 for the restaurant. Liberty County has pretty much the same requirements that we do. They would require 31 as well. Bryan County would require far fewer, 21. So we're kind of in the range, we're maybe at the more restrictive end, but we're not an outlier at all by any means. So staff recommended denial on this because really the simple answer is to reduce the number of seats. And I know it's simple for me to say that, I'm not the business owner, but they are also saying that this is mainly a drive-through focused restaurant, so it did seem like maybe they could reduce the number of seats. However, they did offer to reduce the width of the parking stalls, and that way bring in a few more, and at this point, it's really up to you all.
Okay, we're in the public hearing. I might ask Mr. Marquise if you'd like to come up here. There may be some questions, discussions on this one. There's a little bit of concern when you lose the spots, where would the people park if it's not adequate? And we do not want them obviously parking in other people's parking areas and lots and on the street.
Yeah, I thought when planning and zoning met, they said that they would recommend the approval of reducing it by 12 spaces. So we go
Planning board did recommend approval, yes.
So planning board recommended approval, reducing the required number from 48 to 36, and John Farmer, the civil engineer, is working on the drawing showing the 36 spaces.
Okay.
Where is this at? It's across from Parker.
It's right across from Parker's, next to Howard Dental. So it's the corner lot as you enter into that apartment complex.
Yeah, there's a 2 or 3 story building.
Yeah, there's a 2 or 3, there's a commercial building to the right, and then the apartment complex directly behind.
And then that's the apartments behind it there, is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah, kind of the dispersed looking.
The concerns I would have strictly just for the board to consider is that it doesn't, I don't know that he has access other than that business on the right. I have seen where people don't develop appropriate parking and then they go park in spaces of other businesses, and we don't want that to happen because that creates civil actions and issues that we allow by not requiring adequate space.
Correct.
I mean, looking at the chart that you gave, I'm a little concerned because I see that one for each 3, I'm sorry, one for 2.5 seats. Chatham uses 1 to 4. I don't know, I'll let the board see if they have any questions. Did you do the research that you have with other seasons as Japan restaurants and the kind of traffic they have?
Yeah.
Justify?
According to, so his name is Toshi Harada.
Thank you.
And Toshi's been here for about 25 years. He came over as an announcer for the Japanese Golf Channel.
Okay.
And this is his 6 seasons of Japan. He's got a couple in Savannah, a couple in Berwick, a couple in Pooler, and then one down in Brunswick, and then one kind of far off. But he says that as of this time, about 80% of his business is actually drive-through. And the drive-through does wrap around the building, so there is, we believe there is room. He has nowhere near, he has one on Pooler Parkway, and the most cars I've ever seen stacked were 6, and we've made provisions here to stack 9 cars. So I don't think that's going to be an obstacle, but
the concern I wanted to consider, it may not be a concern, is that as I look through there, it seemed like there's adequate parking for the restaurant, but what I saw was 3 additional retail units.
right.
That's what more concerns me, not just that the restaurant could handle 32 parking spaces, would handle it.
Not knowing what that is.
What's the other 3 retail businesses going to do with their folks and customers? Is that going to cause people to park along the roadsides?
Yeah, I don't, the cost projections that he had run were based upon, the rental of those as just retail space, but I don't think he wants another restaurant in his complex. But he will be the owner of the property and the operator of the restaurant.
Yeah. So the seating capacity, that's just for that one section, that season of Japan. It's
correct.
Not for what the potential seating capacity could be if all of those, like if there was a Firehouse Subs and a season of Japan. Those are the concerns I have.
Well, I think those really could be addressed at the time. Obviously, you would have to pull a building permit for another restaurant or a business license. can be regulated, you know, and that,
You might get denied.
I don't like that idea either.
Right.
But that's the only way to manage it,
Yeah,
manage the parking.
yeah, unless you decreased and had 3 units, and I'm not having to do with property, but if you had the restaurant and 2 bedrooms, then you had more area for parking. You wouldn't have, you wouldn't necessarily get all 4, because you. I want to encourage the board at the same time, and let's be cautious that we don't open a can of worms with that.
And it could easily be a super clips or something, I think, with 4 or 5, you know, I mean, it's.
Yeah, we have 4 or 5 hairstylists in there, each one has one chair, one way, that's 8 or 10 cars, and they have 20-something cars that you can park. So I don't know what the issues are in creating variances like this, but it sounds difficult.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think all we really are obligated is to make sure we protect no issues outside of these property lines. Right?
That's the main concern.
That's really, I mean, this isn't specific to my district, so I'm all ears for input. This is kind of a policy.
Is this your district?
Policy thought. Yeah, but it's not just this issue. This is more of a policy. What we think the board. But
Might have maybe to handle where other businesses go in there. I mean, it's gonna be on him. It's gonna be hard to rent his property. It's gonna affect him more than it's gonna affect us. Other than if there's something too, or, you know, they're all popular, then it does get crowded, but it's gonna be his problem.
Could be a
I mean,
highway problem, trying to hurt him.
there's nothing gonna be there that's gonna make me park at Howard Dillon and walk over there. I mean, there's nothing, I can't imagine anything there that would.
I never did.
I don't.
Japan's pretty good
Base
stuff.
salons there, you might.
So what's the required 48?
Based on what we know at this time, which is the proposed number of seats for the restaurant. The restaurant itself is, by the way, it's 3,200 square feet. So if that were to convert to retail space, they would only need 10 spots. So really, this is driven by the number of seats that are proposed, the 78 that are proposed, which is equivalent to, I don't know how many tables, 15 tables? I don't know.
Okay, so if it was all retail, you wouldn't list any parking spaces.
Yeah, if this was
Correct.
retail, we would not be having anything.
So when the restaurant comes, I mean, is that a different permit? It has to be looked at based on, they gotta provide parking based on that?
Our ordinance, this is what's,
That's
we have
what
a
the question
table
is. I
in
got you.
the
That's what the
ordinance that,
question is, retail. That's it.
And 80% of his business is drive-through. So,
That could change, so.
We don't need parking for that.
That's dining.
Yeah, I think it's another solution would be to limit the number of seating. If 80% of business drive-through, limit the seating to, we said it was 75,
78 is what
limit to 50, you probably would be in compliance.
Yes, I mean, you've got some restaurant chains that are looking at now of taking out the dining room altogether. I mean, just the way COVID's happened and
Right.
everything, they're.
I just wonder if that's a way to do it, and just talking out loud, if you limit it to 50 seat indoors, you know, change of event, you have to have a variance. They would probably comply with the parking.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around reduced parking. What is the negative effect of the safety of the public, or, you know, does it really affect anybody outside the bounds of this?
The other thing I think
It's more detriment to the businesses possibly, as you know.
Yeah, a friend of mine's got a place right down the road from there, and the construction company that's building the parkway has come in there and rented the space next to it. They've got about 8 trucks, and they park all over the place. So it's according to what he rents, you know, these other units to, how it's going to affect possibly his business and his other tenants. Because I see, you know, she's had problems there with parking.
Yeah.
But again, that's on the
Again, that's more of a-
landlord.
I know.
Obviously, the market will drive people who not even there because there's not a parking, or they'll, that's a decision, if we can give a variance for it, we can say, well,
Mr. Chairman? There was kind of an alternative brought up at the planning board meeting, which is how they calculated out the 36, that Eric may be able to provide some light on. Go up to the mic.
During the planning board meeting, there was discussion about how many spaces to do, and we started focusing on the Savannah and Chatham County, which was a space per 100 square feet of dining area, or 1 space per 4 seats. And the conversation kind of went like this: a table of 4, 100 square feet is 10 by 10, and if you start to think about how much physical space 10 by 10 is, that's a table of 4. And if it's a family of 4 going out to eat, they're probably in 1 car spot. So there seemed to be a comfort level that Savannah and Chatham County's code was good for a restaurant. 3,200 square feet was the restaurant size. Mr. Marchese probably tell me exactly what the dining room square footage was, but if you assume about 2/3 of the restaurant is dining and 1/3 is kitchen, you're down to 2,000 square feet or 20 parking spots. The 1 space per 300 square foot for retail is 17, and that got us to 37. And I think the number you gave me that night may have been a little less than 2,000 square feet for the dining space. In other words, we staff and planning board members calculated 36 parking spots would be an acceptable and reasonable number for the site. And so they granted a 12 parking spot variance, as Teresa mentioned a second ago. So I just wanted to explain that to kind of let you know how they became comfortable enough to vote for the variance with the 12 space maximum.
Thank you. 3,200 will be used for
I'm good with it, but again, it's going to affect him more than anybody else, I believe, as the property owner.
Because you end up, there's so many specs on there, parking requirements for a big box store like a Lowe's, and you end up with this asphalt sea. That there are never any cars, but we're at the other end of that.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Mr. Marquise, do you want to say anything?
No, thank you, sir. And it is, it's a large kitchen, so it's a little bit more than that. If you want the exact figures, I do have a set of plans over here.
So the number of parking spaces that we're recommending in, they've been adjusted since the planning board's meeting from 30 something to 36 or 7?
36.
To 36 now? Is that stated in this
Yeah,
condition?
the planning board, when they approved it, they approved the variance for 36 spaces versus the 48, but that was not their original request, so it's kind of, they met in between.
Yeah, we're happy that if you stated that now, that we would have 36 spaces.
And so is that a condition that I see in here, that 36, that request, and or 32?
I didn't change my staff report because it's really something that needed to be talked out. I didn't think I could explain it.
Explain their methodology.
Right.
Well, based on what our engineer has shared, our assistant manager, there was a reasoning for the 36. We could make that the variance condition. Is that correct? Under zoning, we have to have another reading later, I guess. Because it's not the 32 you're requesting, it's the 36 would be the new condition. Okay?
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and, is anyone speaking in opposition to this tonight? Hearing and seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on that. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the requested variance with the condition of 36 parking spaces being provided for this development. Did I say that correctly, you think? Everyone? All right. Someone will say so move.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. DeLoach, to approve the variance with 36 parking spaces. Any final discussion, question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And it passes. Now we'll move the second reading to our next meeting since we added a different condition other than 32. But I don't see any opposition from this board, so it will be official after the next meeting, which will be February 15th for the second reading.
January.
Huh?
January.
Yeah, January.
I'm sorry. That's right, we have one meeting this month. It was-
January
It's the
15th.
February meeting we're not having.
That's
So
right.
January 15th, we'll have our second meeting, we'll be back. Okay?
Thank you very
You
much.
think you could punch something out by then?
Yeah, I'll have-
Just a,
That'll be great.
I'll have at least a site plan, without.
yeah, just kind of.
Yes,
And the actual date is January 18th.
18th, I'm sorry.
January 18th.
18th, yeah, I'm thinking February, because we're canceling our first meeting. All right, that concludes our planning board hearings tonight. We only have a few items left on new business. Can we push forward? Seeing no opposition to that, we'll go back to item number 13. New business consideration to approve change order number 3 with Rain Shine Irrigation LLC for McCall Park.
Sorry, now I'm having technical difficulties here. Give me just a second, I apologize.
It's going to take me a while to get back to that spot anyway, so take your time.
I'm ready. Good evening again, it's Eric Larson, Assistant County Manager. McCall Park renovations, change order number 3 is simple and straightforward. It is a change order for the chain link fencing material. We had a discussion with the contractor and the staff with facilities and, Parks and Landscapes and Recreation, about the type of chain link fence we were going to be putting on the project. It was originally scoped and contracted to be galvanized steel fence, the silver typical chain link fence, and there was a desire to make it more uniform with some of the newer parks that we're building and carry that design forward, which is a black vinyl coated steel fence. And so this change order is simply to change out that material. It is a little bit more expensive. There's a restock fee because the material has already been delivered. The chain link, the stainless steel, the galvanized steel has been delivered. And we're also increasing the height of the fence around the baseball field from 4 foot to 6 foot. And that was a decision made with a discussion with Parks and Landscapes and Recreation Department that the 6 foot fence around the ball field is more appropriate. And so that cost, with all that description, is a $35,000, $425 increase. And that is going to add 60 days to the contract, mainly because the fence is on an 8 to 10 week back order. So, and staff is recommending approval of the change order amount of $35,424.78.
What was the number again? I can't get it on my computer.
$35,424.76.
Okay, any question, discussion? I've lost my information on the computer, so I'm assuming that's alternative 1 is to approve.
Yes, sir. Alternative 1 to approve. Yes, sir.
Motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by, who's that? Mr. Kiefer. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Item number 14, consideration to ratify approval of contract with Roberts Civil Engineering to provide Phase 1 engineering services for the local maintenance improvement grant that's eliminated for the 2022 application of Georgia Department of Transportation.
Again, it's Eric Larson, Assistant County Manager. Our LMIG program is our annual allocation from the state for road resurfacing. There is multiple applications and paperwork that has to be submitted each year to qualify for that program. And the first being the submittal of our additional lane miles that we've added to our system in the past year. And then there's an application for the annual grant application, grant allotment of money for the 2022. That's due at the end of January. The deadline to turn in your road mileage was December 31st. For that reason, and the lack of a meeting in December to bring this forward at that time, we did a Phase 1 contract for the road mileage submittal and the LMIG 2022 application that's due at the end of this month. We solicited proposals from the engineering firms that had this experience within our IDC category. There was 3 of them. 2 of those firms declined to provide a bid. The third firm that we selected and recommended was Roberts Civil, and for phase one, it was $19,700 to do those two applications. Because it was underneath the county manager's ability to sign, he did approve that contract in December, and we're asking for ratification of that phase one contract tonight.
Okay, any question or discussion? Motion for alternative one.
Motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Floyd to approve alternative one. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, passes unanimously. Item number 15, consideration to approve a contract with Roberts Civil Engineering for local maintenance improvement grant LMIG project phase 2 for 2022.
Yes, sir. Again, Eric Larson, Assistant County Manager. So phase two is the same bid process that I just described. We put out a solicitation for firms to assist us with our 2022 LMIG program. Phase two of the project is to take the approved list of roads that we will submit on our application to the end of January and prepare the bid and specification package, and then assist us with bidding and assist us with contract management during construction. And this is a service, and I should have mentioned this with the phase one as well, this is a service we have traditionally consulted out to an engineering firm, and it's budgeted, and that's where the funds for this contract will come from. The amount for this second phase to do the bid specifications and any design work associated with that, and to assist with the bidding and the contract management during construction, this fee for that is $38,327, and we're recommending approval to Roberts Civil Engineering for a contract in that amount.
They're just so busy that you people aren't going to primarily?
Yes, sir. Apparently, I mean, we approached them, they said it was too small and too small, and they're too busy. Yeah. So.
Any other question or discussion? Have a motion for alternative one.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Floyd for alternative one. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 16, consideration to approve the council February 1st, 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting. This is going to be due to Effingham Day at the Capitol. You want to add anything to that?
Yes, sir.
We finished that morning, I think, about lunch, don't we?
Correct.
And so there'll be a quick trip back if you want to meet. Huh?
Task after back to
Yeah.
contract.
So if there's no other discussion, do I have a motion to cancel that meeting?
We had a workshop and we discussed that.
Is that
No.
motion?
Motion to approve alternative one, which is approve the council meeting.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Deloach to approve alternative one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, that meeting will be canceled. If you're going to leave, you can always call
Yes,
it.
sir.
You can sign me up for that too. And we'll go.
Yeah, I'll plan to be there as well.
Well, everybody is, so if you're not going, you'll need to show me this.
But only if John Travolta is
I mean, everything books up so quickly, so
Where are they? Where are they?
Who's at the hotel?
Where are they put us up?
it's the Hyatt this year, the event at Hyatt.
All right, reports from our commissioners and staff. We'll begin with our staff.
Yes, just real briefly, we didn't get a chance to introduce them to y'all. Obviously you know them, but just to publicly let everyone know that Mark Barnes has been promoted to our finance director. He didn't make it to the end of the meeting last time, which was disappointing because he couldn't make it till 10 o'clock or whenever it was, but he's here now. And congratulations to him. And just briefly, the Ron Station is finally open for two-way traffic until they, GDOT and Love's work out their issues to do the full turn lane configuration. And we are still working with the folks to get them mobilized. They seem to think they've got 8 more days out on Old Louisville Road to get started. No matter what even if we were to give them that 10 days, they'd still have to be done by the like third week of February, I think it is the deadline in their contract. But I was out there on Thursday night, and they had not gotten any equipment out there yet, so we're pushing them. They claim the issue is with regards to getting the pipe, but we asked them to start that process early. So not getting sympathetic here from us. So, but that's all I got.
Ms. Teresa, is that you or is that Eric's going to discuss?
I think it's me.
Okay.
So this is the proposed, I don't have anything on PowerPoint, this should have been in your packet, so it's a blue line, it's a structure. The consultants who are working on our code revision and comp plan update set that aside and did some quick work to help us with our R3, R6, and commercial zoning districts as they relate to multifamily and high-density housing, single-family housing development. So I'll just take you through it. They propose some changes to definitions, which is very helpful always. More definitions is always better. Common outdoor open space, so they're taking things up a notch. They've added some multifamily type definitions that we can use. Garden apartment is already in there. Multifamily, mixed-use residential. This is interesting because it's we previously allowed multifamily in our commercial districts, but really there was no fleshing out. There was just absolutely, and all we ever got was townhouses. But this really tries to set it, to bring it back to the commercial and have it be residential above commercial, residential next to commercial in a mixed-use development. So if it's in commercial, it needs to have a commercial component is really where this is going. So that really fulfills what would have been probably the objective of allowing multifamily in business zones and commercial zones anyway, because the whole idea is that you live and work in close proximity, and it's downtowns we're more familiar with that in downtowns, but it's still possible in some of our in mixed-use developments to have just like the Seasons of Japan. It's not all in one parcel, but those folks in those apartments can walk over when this opens to Seasons of Japan and pick up the dinner. So that's really fulfilling the intent there. So as I said, there's some tweaks to definitions. There's some additional definitions, and those were all highlighted in the blue text, so you can see those. Then moving on to R3, there's some enhancement of there's some more guidance for staff. And under amenities, I mean, there's significant increase in guidance here, because before R3, it didn't have anything about open space. But here we've got a suggestion for requiring open space based on the number of units, which is an interesting way to do it, because some developments might have large, spacious, luxurious units, some might have smaller, more affordable, but this is based on the number of units, not on the acreage. So the suggestion is 150 square feet of on-site common outdoor space, open space, per multifamily dwelling unit. And so it will really depend on the acreage. It will really depend on the type of development the developer's doing. Is this large units? Is this small units? Is it a mix of units? So the calculation will be an extra table on the site plan or on the sketch plan, but it will be more information. It will be more specific and customized to the actual development rather than a blanket 20% of your acreage, which if you're making it more and more dense is giving people much less useful space. So this is really thinking of the residents. It's more resident focused in the open space calculation.
So the green recreation space is based on the number of units.
It's based on the number of units.
150.
In multifamily, 150 square feet per multifamily unit.
So if you had 100 units, that's only 15,000 square feet. That's not very much recreational. I mean, that's only what 44,000 is an acre. That's a third of an acre for recreational. For 100, it doesn't sound like enough.
We can.
You said 100 units of 100 per 150 square per unit, 150 square foot per unit. Okay.
So 150 times 100 And they admit
Just a
that.
third of an acre.
They did that wrong. That was 100 units.
Third acre.
15,000, not 30 an acre.
Yeah, that isn't much. That's true, that isn't much, that's what you're saying.
It doesn't sound like it's enough recreational area for 100 units.
We could, this is just for information, so what we can do is, you know, do a table showing 150.
Because it could be enough units where really that's too much. You know, open space. You know, if we went up to, there were 1,000 acres. I mean, 1,000 units. Just hypothetically. You know, being,
Well, good enough for that. It's 1,000 units. That'd be 150, that'd be, about 44,000.
that'd be 3 acres.
Yeah, 3.4 acres. That might be a pretty good size. I wonder, just think that since we're taking input, I wonder if it'd be good to have a minimum, and then.
That's what, that sounds.
No, that is the next line, and then I highlighted it because I wanted to remember to say it, and I didn't. I'm sorry. All single-family developments must provide 10% of total acreage as common outdoor open space. So I think maybe this is,
That'd be the minimum.
we might want to rephrase that so that it's, you know, a minimum of 10 or 150, I don't know, 100.
Yeah, 10% or 150, whichever's greater,
Exactly.
something like that.
Yeah.
Because I think if you had 1,000 units, yeah, 3 acres might be a pretty good size.
Sure, yeah.
Done well, an acre in each section. So that'd be my comment is consider that.
So you're happy with 10% as the cap, as the?
Only because I noticed when I read it, it doesn't include, I think it was your concern before, it doesn't include the wetland areas and the ponds. It's got to be
They can't
usable.
utilize it, it shouldn't be considered common.
Right, it's 10% of actual usable space. If it's that, then I think that's better than 20 or 30%, and 50% of the land is wetlands. We haven't done anything.
Right, and actually, you know, in the defense of our ordinances, they always did say that up to, 20% and no more than 50% could be the wetlands and ponds, but there was always a lot of kind of uncertainty about what we were actually getting that was usable. This is more specific about what counts as usable. It must be accessible to all residents, not just a landlocked parcel behind, a few houses. So it does flush it out quite a bit.
Can't use buffers either unless they're actually part of the recreation. I like that too. So all these arguments they can give us, well, I've got this 45-foot buffer and I've got this wetland over here. No, it's got to be actual planned usable space for the community.
But they're supposed to be undisturbed, so they should be improved to recreation.
I don't see anything about flood up here. I thought that was the whole thing, we get away from R6.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we have a couple of choices here. The PUD is going to put some of these uses together, mixed use. It could put R6 and a multifamily, like apartments. It could put some things together with some commercial, okay? You could get away from these different zonings and just do PUDs. But what I do like about what I was reading through here, Mr. Loach, is that it gives them some guidelines. If you don't really want to do a mixed use and you just want density, then you need to develop with this much green space, recreational, sidewalks, all the things that we want in it, that would be a PUD that's mixed use. Does that make sense? And it gives them guidelines as they develop their mixed uses, and how to put the commercial and the residential together. If you just do a PUD and you don't have any zoning, am I right on this? If you don't have any individual zonings, how do they know what we're really looking for as they put together these mixed uses?
Correct. I mean, you could make these guidelines for PD techs. That, you can submit a PD text, you can submit a PD to us, but if you do, here are the guidelines you have to follow, which could mimic these as well. So it kind of gives you a couple of options if you want to do kind of a raw zoning and then tighten up the requirements on it with these types of better guidance. You could go that route, and then PD would be if they needed to deviate from these kind of in any way and almost, say, hey, I'm willing to do this here. If you're willing to be more forgiving over here, I'm willing to give you more over here type of thing. And that PD gives you that gives you that sort of flexibility where you can kind of work out something with the developer. And I'll give you an example. If you've got this massive tract of land that has 500 acres of wetlands in it, he's essentially being, and 200 acres of highland, he's being punished because he's got all those wetlands in it, right? Because he's now got to include them for his calculations for open space. Where he would have been better off just subdividing them out, and we don't necessarily want him to do that, and and donating them or whatever, so we can kind of come up with an arrangement in the PD form that takes, the particulars of a development in site where, under condition where it may not necessarily fit into this, to our new zoning categories, if that makes sense. Or you can just make everything PD with these guidelines. It's an option that's available for both, but we wanted for you all to consider, but we wanted to give you both options.
My fear is that after 150 days, we really aren't going to change very much. What was it for?
Well, I think we will have changed. I like the idea of the PD text. I'm hearing you right. I want to see us have guidelines so developers know what they can do with multifamily, single dwelling, smaller units and so forth. What is the board looking for? What is this county looking for quality developers? And there's two ways I hear you say we could go. We could improve the zonings for our multifamily now. It gets more control and stipulations. The developer could take those, if they got an R6 approved or an R3 or whatever, and they could build within those guidelines and everything's good and it meets the things that we've been discussing that improves the quality of development. Or you could do one of the things we talked about, moving everything into a planned development. And these are the things, if you want multifamily, if you want single dwelling but high density, if you want commercial, these are the things that you have to bring to us in your PUD, because these are just requirements of the PUD. It may not be a mixed use, that PUD. It may be a single type use, but it is improved guidelines.
And we can show you examples of both, and then you kind of choose kind of which direction you want to go. But this was, if we kept the existing zoning categories, what additional requirements would we put in there to make it more match what you all have been discussing as these last few have come before you?
Administratively, if it fits into the R6, it's probably easier to manage that project from staff level, right?
Yeah, because in that case, you're just checking boxes.
Yeah, PD document.
Yeah. It's going to get us deeply involved in every high-density situation. So if we can come up with some improvements in our R3, R6, is it R11 and B3? What's the four?
Oh, it was B1 and B, and it was R3, R6, B1, 2, and 3, but the B1, 2, and 3 were just the multifamily component.
They were really done not too long ago. Right?
What?
B1, B2, and B3 were just, we did some work on those not too long ago. Right?
For multifamily?
Not for multifamily, but for some other things. So
Yeah, for some other things, mini storage, that sort of thing. And quite frankly, if you want mixed use in B zoning, in that case, we could punt that into a PD requirement. That if you want anything that's mixed use, it really has got to have to go more towards the PD than straight zoning with conditions on it. So
So we're looking into a straight PD language. Is something going to be added in here, or?
Well, and that was kind of the guidance from y'all, is that we could basically take this language and say, these are going to be guidelines for our PDs as well. And the only reason you would do that is if it's a PD that has both a let's say an R3 component and an R6 component.
And a B1 or 2 component.
Yeah, and that you know that those guidelines that were required in each of those are going to apply to the PD test, if that makes sense. Or move everything to anything that's high density to PD with restrictive guidelines.
I'd like us not having to be involved if we can satisfy ourselves that some of the issues we've been having on green space and starter homes not becoming rental homes later on that create blights in our community. And all the things that we're trying to do to make sure we have more quality development. If we can do that and keep the R3 and the R6, and the PD just gives them direction, hey, if you want to put a mixed use together, we have commercial in the front, you have some high density apartments next, and you've got some single family dwelling density, you've got some big, you can put that together through a PUD, but now you've got some different zonings that become the text for the plan development. They can come to us with something that they know we're already considering that we believe is helpful for the community. Does that make sense? But if all you want to do was density single family dwelling, then you have the guidelines that we've been discussing, the association that's required now to make sure that green spaces and common spaces are maintained. A lot of times we've got places like Western Heights now that has common green spaces and nobody maintains them. That's an example of what happens when you don't have something legally to go and make sure. They want us to pay for signs and cut their common places, and we can't do that. It's not our places. That's in this document, if I read it correctly.
Yes.
Recreational spaces, that some of these areas we can look at, don't have them today, but they would have them, and a requirement to maintain them. You know? So those are the things that I see are the benefits. If we can solve that in R6 and R3, I kind of like to see those zones stay there because staff can manage quality developments that are good for our community.
So you're saying legally we can make a developer maintain common areas and recreate green space?
We can make them, according to what I understand, they can require them to come up with a legal organization.
That's kind of what we did with.
See, right now, R6 right now requires, there be an owners association. So it's, how do you enforce that? You know,
Well, and
you just
that's,
can't. I don't know, I mean.
it starts with that, but,
Fades out.
yeah, but, you know, it could just be a defunct because they don't have their meetings or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But at least we're starting with that process.
That's right.
And that's the best we can do.
Yeah, no, you're right. Tough one to enforce.
If you don't start with it, then you're never going to have the opportunity to keep it. And there's usually, we've got some communities now that have these associations, and there's usually 4 or 5 people that, they got them, they like being president of them and making sure the neighborhood kept up. And, I guess like the one we pretty recent, the PD, pretty recent, that's part of the condition. They got to come up with a legal organization that can actually collect fees and dues or whatever. I don't know if we can enforce it, but it helps ensure that it's going to be a little better.
And particularly in the multifamily aspect of it, where they're sharing real property, roofs, exterior, that sort of thing. You know, it becomes a public safety issue.
Sure.
And so, you know, I think we can easily require that.
Yeah.
So another thing about the R3 is that we're recommending a reduction of the density. Currently, R3 allows up to 12 units per acre, which, I mean, built on the ground is impossible. We've never seen anything like that. That's really referring to multi-story buildings. So they're recommend reducing that to 9 units per acre. And because the assumption is that there'll be ground floor retail or there'll be retail components within the development. So reducing the number of buildings devoted to residential, to multifamily residential in development, and either installing commercial on the ground floor or in separate standalone building in an out parcel. So that's the assumption there.
So in R3 there, it has a commercial component in it?
In the definition of multifamily, mixed-use residential, yes, that would be.
Well, that's the B3.
I thought that was
You're right, I'm
B3.
sorry, that's the B3.
Yeah, B3 would have a residential component, R would not have a business component.
Right, I'm sorry.
Gotcha. Okay.
There are a lot of zone issues here.
Yeah.
So R3.
But they still recommend you go down to 9 versus 12?
Yeah. Yes, that's what's shown in the table. They kept, we had a lot in building requirements kind of table, and they recommend reducing the reduction in density. They said, there are notes on the side here. Yeah, we've never seen, they're saying here, they did some analysis of our zoning, and they determined that we've never seen more than 8 units per acre on a multifamily residential unit anyway, so leaving it at 9 accommodates all ends our existing multifamily, and by that I'm assuming they mean the conversion crossing apartments, but also allows for even a slight increase in density. But it doesn't eliminate any proposals we've heard of. We haven't heard of anything that would have ever achieved that kind of density. So those are the main R3 points. In the R6 zoning district, they recommend reducing the density there as well from 6 to 4.5, and it's really the same argument. We never see 6 units per acre. All that allows is a smaller lot, and then that's made up for. There's usually wetlands, there's roads, there's all other uses of land. So we really don't see more than 2 or 3 units per acre. But R6 has scared a lot of neighbors, as you know, in the past, when they see you're going to allow 6 units per acre. That's incredibly dense. How can you do that? It's not even, it's really not allowing that. But the recommendation is that we reduce that number anyway to about 4.5, because that still accommodates every R6 development we've ever had and any we've ever heard of, but it's more realistic.
And different area for the green space and recreational.
Right, it's accommodating slightly larger lots, which again is probably, and that plays into why they're recommending no change in the overall open space. Again, it's a 10% usable open space, so that just specifies that it's a usable open space accessible to all residents. But not accommodating the ponds and the wetlands, which often account for at least half of that 20% that we currently require. So this way, we're getting definitely 10%, and whatever additional unusable land that is there is green space, by default. It's just not counted as part of our calculation. So that's for R6.
So with the R6 developments we've seen, none of them have missed the mark by a lot. Just the question has been the green space and what's considered and how it's used.
And it's really the lot size. I think that's going to be the biggest difference. Although they say here they did an analysis and that they...
65 to 8,500, didn't they, lot size?
Yeah, which I'm not sure where that is, but we have maybe half a dozen or so R6s, and there are some where some lots end up being quite large, sort of end of cul-de-sac and there's wetlands, and so that's probably the highest end of anything we've seen. Just recently with Oglethorpe Landing, as an example, those are, those lots, they vary, and Buckingham Plantation on Phase 3, they varied in size quite a bit, but it was really to do with just configuration at the ends of cul-de-sac and you got that larger wedge. So this is setting a slightly larger minimum requirement, and that allows, there's a little more space between houses, and
you can't, this might be a legal question, you can't put any square footage on multifamily, can you? Like,
you mean on the units? On the actual unit residential? I don't, in our ordinance, not the zoning, but we do have a minimum residential dwelling unit size of 525 square feet.
Yeah, that's nothing. See, I'm thinking of like one of the R6s that came to us, they're going to build, I think, maybe 2,000 square foot home. So that's a pretty good sized home. And we all are familiar with residential areas where there are really nice 2,500, 3,000 square foot homes on small lots. I can shake your neighbor's hand, but it's a very beautiful home. And that's where people are going to today. I think they don't want to maintain a big yard, particularly the younger generation. But we can't put a square footage, can we, Mr. Lee, on that? With zoning?
Yeah, I kind of zoned out here, no pun intended. I didn't hear your question.
But I was just asking, like if you went to a multifamily, or the R6, for example, 4.5 home residence, can you say that for R6, there has to be a certain size home built to qualify for that R6? The idea is getting away from the 500, 600, or 1,000, 1,200 square foot home that becomes a piece of rental property that later on, it's a lot of rental property out there, everybody bought it, and then my house, I kept it, and I rented it for years, and then my next neighbor moved, and they rented their house, and pretty soon you don't have neighborhood anymore, you've got a bunch of rental property. Not that it's bad, it's a different environment for the community. So I guess I'm asking if you could put a square footage like 1,600 square foot, then you're setting a standard of development that they're gonna have to go to a different market. Does that make sense? It's gonna be a little higher quality.
You know, we do have, and it was existing already, the maximum lot coverage of 45%, so that really kind of does create the limit on the size of the house on a lot, on a given lot.
I'm not going to limit the size, I'm going to limit the small.
Encourage large.
I want it to be larger. I'm not sure that you can legally do that.
I have to look, honestly, I don't know.
Does that make sense? Is that any interest from the board? Because, I mean, that's what recently we approved one, and we had them add a garage and increase the square footage, and they pushed back, and we said, hey, you're going to get more for that, and you'll get a higher quality of folks wanting to.
We talked about this, it's been years ago, Phil, and you made a comment that we can't, if you go too large, you impact lower income families, and it looks like we're trying to exclude a certain.
Yeah, I don't think that's
So we got to be careful.
slope. You don't want to get 2,500 square feet, but I'm just thinking is there a square footage that would be, if you don't want multifamily, you can come in there and build a 1,200 square foot home or whatever.
Right, that was true.
But if you want density to ensure that it says quality construction, can you set a minimum of, 1,600 square foot, 15, something that's not too large?
You know, the reason why other people couldn't regulate green space and everything else, why can't you? Regulate square footage.
Build the space.
Is it worth asking Lee to check that out for us, or is that not an interest of the
There's
commission?
been some legislation in the last couple of years, and it may have been geared more towards, there were some jurisdictions trying to dictate exterior finishes and styles, and there was some legislation to kind of curb that, and I don't know if they discuss square footage, then maybe we're looking into it.
Look at places like Hilton, everything has to look a certain way, everything's got.
They do it there, they do it there.
Oh, I know. Yeah, yep.
That happens everywhere, especially island communities and things like that. They tell you everything. Amazing. And it's, I don't think anything's wrong with it, as long as you can provide for different demographics. And like one thing that was brought up at the chamber event we went to, Jekyll, was one young lady said, what about us single people that just want a small place to rent? We need more of that. There's hardly any place to go. There's no place for you to rent. We need apartments in townhomes too. We do need that. They don't want to buy 2,000 square foot houses.
That's what Next Chapter's doing down there at the county line.
They don't want to do that stuff. They want the small rental. They can do anything, not maintain and have a pool. That's how I do it. People might not live next to that, but there are people do. Some of them might have a small kid and he's good at that school district. We need to be inclusive representation.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe that's not a good answer. Maybe the answer is just have the amenities and the green space and the parking, those things that.
But in that zoning, it may be different. I'm not saying it. In a certain type of zoning, you want to make that not a nice place to live, that you're respecting everyone else. Just allow for it somewhere else, so that it can be built, and we can, hey, we need some places for kids to play in these smaller areas and stuff like that, just like you do in bigger places. Make it nice for everybody, and everyone.
Just the more I sit here and think about it, I just don't know from the policy standpoint if you want to get into how the size of the home, because the market's going to dictate that. Now you're telling a developer or a builder what they should actually build. And as you know, the market's going to change over time. I do like the idea of what y'all been doing with the green space, right? And that's good. And that's something if you want to get into like this particular area, these homes need to be this size. I think that we would run into problems down the road doing that. Because what's the guidance going to be? How do we select here is good, here's good, no, here's not good? That's what the zoning's for. You don't want to get into what type of home should actually be built there.
That's a good point.
So more focus should probably be given to those areas that you want to see that type of growth in. I mean, it goes back to your comp plan and your future land use map. Just designating those areas for those uses so that you kind of guide where you would like to see that development or those types of development.
I think it's important that we mix that up then too, so we don't segregate multifamily all over here.
Right.
And it, you know, it needs to be, one of my big arguments when we had the things that go to the church on Goshen Road, Wilson Bones, one other place there, the place beside them, what's it called, it starts with a name? Autumn Woods. Everybody hated the idea. Like, those people deserve to send their kids to school just like you do. You know, you're building houses beside houses. I just didn't understand a lot of that rhetoric about, you know, you're going to devalue my home and all this other stuff. Those people deserve the same chance you got. Everybody can't afford a $500,000 house.
That's right.
Well, I made it clear that every one of them in there had a $500,000 house. The first thing every one of them said. So
yeah.
You could hear the entitlement.
How was that?
That's what we need to tell them. Would you mind sending a letter to the tax commissioner so they make sure they assess that house?
Meet your agents.
Speak a little louder into the microphone there.
I want to carry the same time. Yeah. Where we spread that throughout the family. We're getting the same opportunity.
Well, it sounds like what the commission doing then is we may be on the right track just to strengthen the quality of the green space, the amenities, removing some of those things that we're allowed to use so we get better and then just trust the market and development and try to speak into the sketch plans.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing is, I guess, green space. When I think about density, I mean, that's fine. You want to put houses on top of each other, but at least provide the children option that they can go play, not in the street.
Right.
And any way we can strengthen, and I don't know if we can, of the maintenance of that green space and make sure it, you know, I don't know what, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know what it is.
I think people are pretty good about establishing an HOA because it behooves them to do that. I mean, if they get an HOA, it gets passed off to them, and that stuff doesn't get handled, man, it's a wreck. And their neighborhood starts.
I can tell you, the developer and the builder, they set the tone. And
They did.
They set the tone of how that HOA is.
They passed ours off, and we gave a lot of tax and different stuff. It's just a weird situation. You know, for the most part, though, everybody's on board with the same thing. We want to keep the place looking nice. That does affect values of homes, so how it looks and the appearance of everything. Everything runs pretty smoothly after everybody kind of figures out, hey, this helps me in the long run. Whether I use that facility or not, I don't know what's run down.
At least, I think we said that we were discussing the legality of the HOAs requiring them to do that. We can require it, but it may not be much if it goes to farm. But at least if it starts, we can require it legally to start appropriately, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's you can.
That's in this document, if I read it.
It's in R6 right now.
It's in there now, and, but I will say that, keep in mind that if a development goes, even if they stop actively meeting and paying dues and so on and so forth, most covenants and restrictions are taking that into account and say these still these covenants and restrictions are still in effect. And so, but then it becomes a civil matter where someone has to go in there and basically out of their own pocket to enforce. Am I right on that?
Well, I guess the problem is you're going to need the covenants in place to create the HOA, to provide the framework for the HOA. So now we're getting in the business of requiring subdivisions to have covenants. And how far are we going to get into that? I think that's problematic.
But that's a couple of concerns we have. If you build condos, those examples.
What about addressing a different way and in a way where it just require them to demonstrate how they're going to maintain that common space going forward? Kind of leave it open. That's the only way you can, but it'll be up to them to demonstrate.
Right, because otherwise you're trying to dictate to them what their covenant should read, and how they should, what restrictions they should actually have there, and how far we're going to get involved with developments, right? I mean,
It's
that's
something to take care of stuff, and let them figure out everything else. And hey, this is what we'll, this much green space, and you guys figure out how to take care of that, or how you word that, and let that be. And if I'm a developer, I want good covenants and restrictions anyway to protect each homeowner that I'm trying to sell to.
Yeah, no, I think that's implied, because I think as a good developer, or even maybe a substandard developer, they realize now that covenants are the way to have the value in those homes.
Right.
Without them, you're not, very few people want to be in a subdivision without them. And some may not want to, but they realize the value of them.
But we don't want to fool, they have a thing where you have to know your grass ever so often. And so this guy moved all his grass to rock. His whole
Well, that's the example I was going to go to, is that we do have ordinances.
They comply.
But we do have ordinances. Well, we do have ordinances that probably cut the grass, right? If the grass cuts up so high, we can fine them.
Yeah, well, city arena has that already.
So if we can do that, is there something legal we can do if a green space is not maintained? Can that be assessed on the people who are in that development? Like if your yard, we have an ordinance, I think, or I know Springfield does when I was there. If your grass gets up so high for so long, you can be fined and brought to their magistrate court.
Right, I mean, but then that gets into, as the county, we probably have to triple the size of our code enforcement, because now we're going to get every call from every subdivision that says, like Westwood, perfect example. Like Westwood Heights is a perfect example of, wanting the county to function as their HOA. And they've got someone that's not cleaning a house, or the grass is, 2 feet high. So that's the problem there, because you can't just do it for one, and then once it gets known, now it's a bigger problem, because now we have code enforcement that can't accommodate every, subdivision or homeowner that's having that problem. Once you start enforcing it, we can't have this selective enforcement. We're going to do it over here, we're not going to do it on this part of the county. Now it's an overall county problem. So again, it's just one of those, it's
I don't think the county has that authority to make people cut the grass and all this kind of stuff. Maybe HOA you can, but that only lasts for 10 years, and if they don't renew it, that's gone in 10 years.
Well, I think you have the authority based on certain safety issues, snakes, rodents, it creates environmental issues, just like you can't contaminate the property with oil, So there's contamination there. There's reasons why you can put those on there. And I'm not talking about doing it for all the individual yards. We already got that. I was thinking about these new developments that has a green space, that has playground equipment that goes bad. And it becomes dangerous. I get that it's not our issue, but could we, if they had an organization that was tied legally to each of those 100 lots that's in there, could we make an assessment?
Yeah, I'd have to really give that some thought, but again, just for the same reasons. Again, now that's a big can of worms, there. And I understand, it's in theory, that sounds great, but the practice of it is a little difficult, because who are you going to assess?
So what are you going to
But let me just finish. So, once you start assessing, now what do you got to do? Well, you got to have a tax commissioner that's going to want to foreclose on all those properties. We're not paying those.
Yeah, I see the issue. I'll give you another direction. What if if you had a legal homeowner association that was tied to those properties, we don't get involved, but would that give the property owners, if playground equipment gets dangerous and a child gets hurt, they can all be sued civilly, recreate an environment at least where they're going to be more attentive, keeping that because they want to keep their property back and we don't get involved.
Yeah, no, and that would be the purpose of the homeowners association. They would actually, that entity itself would carry insurance. If it's run properly, it's going to carry insurance like any other corporation would. And it's going to accept the dues, everybody's going to pay, they're going to try to collect. And then when they have their money for the maintenance, it's going to be in their budget every year to go and replace any equipment that's damaged or needs to be replaced and to prevent any injuries. So, you know, again, those in theory, that should work very well. But just in practice, a lot of the times it just doesn't, because it's surprising that, you know, when I have closing, it amazes me that people have to pay their HOA dues in 6 years. And then they're complaining they got to pay $2,500. But, you know,
Can they be sued civilly by their neighbors?
They could.
If somebody gets damaged?
They could, but then they got to go find a lawyer that's going to do it, right? And the lawyer's going to say, well, I need $2,500 to get started with this. And it's like,
I'm talking about a child that gets hurt on their play area because they didn't maintain it.
well, that would be the HOA that would own it, because the individual homeowners wouldn't own it.
They could be sued individually, collectively.
No, not unless all say it was a 50-lot subdivision, all 50 lot owners would have to be on the deed, and they would own it. But typically, those are common areas, and those are transferred.
They won't be on the deed.
Correct. It'll be in the HOA stand.
So this is actually turned into a work session. I thought it
really
was just
has.
kind of a presentation thing. You guys look at it, let us know, give us some thought. Can we continue in our work session?
Yeah, how would that, can we, at the next meeting, just?
Well, the issue, I think, is that 30-day extension. So, to be able to, and not having a meeting on February 1st will then push us into beyond the 30-day extension. If we only have first reading on the 15th, or the 18th of, I'm sorry, the 15th of June, which, if we push this off, we wouldn't have first meeting on the 15th, or first reading on the 15th, right? Because we're going to continue the discussion. That's the only reason I'm discussing, unless you wanted to try and set a workshop up between now and the end of the month, let's say.
But is our next agenda going to be that heavy?
I don't think so. You can do a work session before the meeting on the
Okay.
15th.
And then that would get us,
30 minutes early.
Yeah.
You mean the 18th?
Huh?
On the 18th, correct? Yes, January.
on the 18th.
Yeah, why don't we meet at 4:30, be here before 4:30, so we can ready to go and have some discussion of all the input we've had. If we need 15 or 20 more minutes during commissioners and staff time, we can conclude those discussions then.
Okay.
And maybe we'll have some more solid direction, because it's not get a lot of questions.
But it's all stuff, I mean, you've gotten basically most of what they
Yeah.
recommended here. It's kind of stuff you can all ponder.
Well, can we take an opportunity to clean some of this up since we're doing this? Like, B2, 5.10.3, prohibited uses, we've got excluding storage of junk vehicles that shouldn't even be there. There's no purpose for that phrase to even be in there. It's not an approved use of B3.
Yeah, and it's,
So stuff like that, and let's, you know, can we take some of the industrial stuff out of B3? Put it in I-1? Let's take.
I mean, if we're amending the ordinance, we can take care of it. And we were going to put those on the February agenda, moving the...
Yeah, we have to advertise it, so it would be on the February 15th.
And so we were going to, like, let's say, remove warehouse operations from an approved use in B3, like, for example, which it is right now.
Right.
We were going to amend that, and we can, and leave it in conditional, but we can amend those simultaneously since that's what we're doing.
Unless we want to redefine a business use for a warehouse. I mean, if you've got a plumbing warehouse, that's a B. You got a warehouse there, you're housing places. A business is when people visit there to do business. That's what a B district is, or a C district is in other areas. So if people are going to be visiting there, that's what that should be. Industrial use should be industrial use. That's where people don't go. And that's how you mix in this B3 that we whatever it was last time. So motor freight terminal does not belong in the B. I know we got it as an option to do that in a conditional use. Shouldn't do that. If we want to look at doing, okay, your small mom and pop guy, that is a conditional in an AR, and define that, and you can have 3 pieces of equipment or property equipment, fine. But some of these guys are going in and they could be 50 trucks in these areas. And we have no mechanism to control any of that. And then we only have a platform to stand on to say no, or direct them in what we want. If we wanted to do the Highway 80 industrial, and that's what Forrest wanted, I've been fine with that. But if that's really the direction we want to go, but it needs to be really industrial. If we want to keep it B in homes, I'm on board with them for that too. Just wanted to, we don't need to define this stuff, because we've got to say this stuff right now. We're going to keep getting these problems over and over. So let's take these things out of the B districts and put them in a light industrial, at least. At least our constituents are going to know what we can do and can't do. Right now, it's so.
I wonder if we could get together before that next meeting, 3 or 4 of us, and try to clean some stuff up and sit down with you, then have a input from everybody at the workshop on the 18th, you said?
On the 18th.
Yeah.
I'd like you to be involved in that.
I'd love to be. And I'm also, I was going to suggest, we do the workshop, and this is a completely different issue before then. And I think we need to be involved. School board needs to be involved. Planning board needs to be involved. Planning board's been asking for a workshop over there for us since I've been on the board. This is my 4th year. We've never done a workshop with planning board that I'm aware of on growth. Are we going to continue this trajectory? Is it good for our people? Is it not? Can we slow down? All those questions need to be answered, guys. We really got to. If it's continue on, fine. If that's what we come to. But we need to really think about, okay, are we going to overwhelm these schools? Talk to Yancy tonight. He's like, no, I'm seeing what's coming down the pipeline. It's a lot. And I don't think we should say no. It's their right to build that. But maybe we say not quite right now, because I've got to fix 180 homes over here, 300 over here, and we got to absorb, we've got another approval over here for 150. We're going to be overwhelmed.
Well, I think we need to have a workshop, because I had a conversation with him, and he said something different to me. He made it seem like they're prepared.
Yeah, he did say that. He said, we're prepared for what you got right now.
Yeah.
He said that we could be straining, if you think he said he put 600 over on the middle school, and another so many on the high school, what numbers he's quoting. He also says he's at capacity at South Effingham Elementary. He has no way, that's why he's taking away Belmont Glen. Belmont Glen would be upset, because now they're not going to be able to take him over to the elementary line. He can't put any more students there. The only option he has is to go up. So I don't think he wants to be the bad guy that says you can't, we need to slow down. But he needs to be in on that meeting where, okay, guys, I can handle this, but if we go here, what happens then? Where do we? Well, where and can we draw a line? And if the answer is we don't, then define what we're going to do and where we're going to do it. The answer might be, hey man, we're capacity over this school zone, maybe we need to focus a little bit over here, moratorium this for 6 months, whatever. I don't know the answer to that. I just think we need to really talk it out. And what he did say tonight too, he said, I'm more worried about overwhelming the roads than I am overwhelming the schools at this point. Because people can't get back and forth to school. He did say that too.
Well,
so I worry about it too.
Sound like, if you agree with this, it's like there's 2 things. One, we're trying to get a handle on the actual zoning when we do have the growth, when we allow it. We need to move forward with that, have a workshop, get that cleaned up. But secondly, we need to have that workshop, we bring together and say, maybe we do put a moratorium on new multifamily zonings for a while, if there's an issue. If it's due to our roads and our school systems. For 1 year, we're not going to take any multifamily beyond what's on the table. I don't know if we're going to do that. You know what I'm saying? It's like 2 different things. One is the growth. And
it is too, but you guys mentioned workshop, that's why
I agree with that. I think it's a great idea. I think we move forward with zoning, workshop on the 18th to clean it up, they need a copy of that, probably, maybe we can get together with Tim and a few of us.
Yeah.
And work on
Just see what
we have
still
a
makes sense.
cleaner document to bring on the 18th to discuss. At the same time, let's start looking at reaching out to the school board and maybe even that city meeting and talk about development and where we want it to be. And because we got to remember, this is just the unincorporated area. You got the incorporated area that's got their multifamily and their planning and their growth that's going to tax our school and our roads. So we probably need to bring them, the school board, and maybe get on a common page. Do we need to restrict the growth just so that our infrastructure that we've already got approved gets caught up? We're working hard on it. It may be a couple, 3 years before we're really ready for a lot of growth beyond what we're already on the books.
That's my worry too. We got a lot of infrastructure changes in place, but by the time we get them done, we're going to be capacity again.
I was just going to mention, keep in mind that what we're trying to do here with the multifamily and the R6 and also private roads is we gave the consultant those items that we really needed them to provide them for us first, and then step back and look at the whole the zoning text as a whole. And so that's kind of what we're doing. But in the meantime, there are some Band-Aid fixes that we realize we have to do that can't wait for that document to come out. Removing stuff from permitted uses in B3s that may turn out to be a problem, or providing better definitions of what's already there, so we limit how folks can interpret it. So it's kind of those two quick fixes that we're doing, the density residential zoning and the private roads, and then a few Band-Aids here and there to get us through that until we get that full zoning text rewrite, which that meeting that you're talking about, I think should be part of it, right? When you sit and talk about this, the zoning text rewrite, the consultants should be there as well, so they can help facilitate it when it comes to how do you take what your wishes are and convert them into a zoning text, and B, how do you what is problematic in let's say you like a moratorium, open-ended moratorium, right? Well, that may spark an issue with regards to the home builders or something to that effect. Generally, if you have a moratorium and it's got a defined reason for its expiration, rewriting the code, for example, they generally, and this was my discussions with the home builders, they're okay with it. But if you leave it open-ended or start doing some sort of permit allocation, stuff like that, it could run you afoul and run you into the courts. And so
I would like for a couple of home builders to maybe be at this meeting, so we can see what their side of the story is.
Matt Burgess, the president of the homeowners builders, whatever. Kids
I'd love him to be here.
Yeah, that'd be good.
There's no, I know he's out for profit and everything, but he's not, I don't think he would be a guy that would stand up there and go, oh, we're gonna build no matter what. He lives here too, doesn't he? He lives in Effingham, and he's got families here, and they gotta get to school, and they're in the same boat everybody else is, so maybe they can help. Hey, I can see doing that, and instead of just saying, okay, we're gonna go get together, and the homeowners are gonna do whatever we tell them. Listen, bye.
I wonder if, when we go to Atlanta, could we use some of that time there to have a workshop? What are we doing? Is it just
We won't be
Sunday?
there long enough.
Huh?
We won't be there long enough. We're going up on Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
Effingham Day activities begin at 2 with the DOT meeting. And then Tuesday just goes until like 10:30 or something.
Let's go up Sunday.
That's what I was wondering.
My concern is if too much public gets involved. I know this is going to sound terrible, but I think the initial conversation, I want to make sure is through, decision makers, county, city, board of education, where we're able to have, a conversation because, you know, we get all these entities together. I mean, it might be a daggone WWE wrestling match out here or something, and we don't even really get to have a conversation.
Okay.
And some of your other leaders may say, hey, you know, we just want a couple members from each board or something. They're not exactly the full board.
See, and that's probably how you should start, and I understand the moratorium concern, but it should be these initial meetings like you're mentioning.
Yeah.
Have that discussion with those stakeholders. Then you have a public session based on your comments that you gathered from those meetings.
And by all means, I mean,
Yeah.
we work for the public. The public, you know, input is important, but
They can't make it.
we need, I think, to have some initial conversations to see
Well, they
what.
look out for their space, and that's it, and that's the truth.
We gotta have ideas for consideration.
I'll give you
And Atlanta, I mean, that's not.
a great example is that we went to the HOD over at Vermont Clinic, and nobody wanted to close off Forest Haven Drive. They're like, no, we're going to go into just one spot. That's 300 people against 18. They didn't even know that issue existed. They talked about it. They're like, what? So communication is still an issue here. It's the people that it affects really didn't get involved because they didn't know it would affect them. They didn't know that was even on the board. Now you got to, you know, and I knew, because I know if I was there, I'm trying to get to work, I'm going to know the way out of the county if I can get one. That's the kind of stuff that's happening, you know, with the public. They look at this part of it. I got another complaint about one of the guys that lives close to which roundabouts we're trying to do. But then you got 300 other people that, yes, I'd love to be able to get through there and get to school quicker.
Sounds good. We need to probably move on. We got hours delayed. Two things, opportunity to maybe on the 18th have some additional discussion I think will still be valuable for this board, having read through the documents to make sure we know what we're doing. And I'm still wondering if we're going to be in Atlanta on that Monday as originally scheduled, could we go on Sunday? I don't know if you want to do that or not, and meet there Monday morning, because it'll start till when, Tuesday? I mean, 2 o'clock?
Now, it would depend on if we're able to get rooms at this point, because they have already put out an email about an overflow hotel. So, if you do it, it may require you staying in one place and moving to another.
There might be more house notes worth there, but I want to check that, because they usually give an overflow, because something this big is going to have a lot of people. GMA, I think, has got their conference that weekend, and that may be the reason they got the overflow.
What are you talking about?
But they're already booked that high.
We're talking
So the
about-
overflow is the Marriott Marquis.
Yeah, they connect by the breezeway on it.
Well, which part do you want to do in Atlanta? Do you want to do a workshop with all the entities, or do you want to do, we're talking about just the zoning issue?
I think we'll follow up with the zoning after our discussion on the 18th, but if we're going to invite a couple of board members from the school or
Yes,
zoning.
we go to RV.
Now, and then we also have to consider our ability to book a conference room. It may or may not be available.
Yeah, I don't know.
That may be better served here, where we get everybody
Yeah.
together. I think to have more turnout, trying to get everybody up there early on that for that meeting. So that workshop really needs to be taking place. We're about to hear another 300 homes, I guess, at the end of Cobb County in 30. Is that the next meeting with us?
It's going to be on the planning board this month.
Okay.
It should hit us sometime in February.
I'm scared to death. I don't have, I mean, people have legitimate problems with this trying to get it out.
So do you have the meeting that Jamie mentioned, maybe sometime next week, if you can schedule it with just a few of you guys and a few of the others, just to go ahead?
I'll be available next Thursday or Friday. Would be good for me if we could do it. Maybe Thursday or Friday.
I'd spare the day, because I would love some guidance and everybody's input. and get playing together to, if we do anything.
Actually, Wednesday I might be available as well, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, next week.
I'm good for those days.
We could actually do a workshop, we publicize, and anybody that want to come could come to it. If we have a quorum, fine, if we don't, fine.
Well, if you're doing it next week, there won't be time to advertise it.
What about the
Which means what time?
21st?
Oh, because the paper's already going out? I thought we could announce those meetings in the arm through the website.
So if you do,
I'm just trying to make it available, if anybody wanted to come, you could come that way, we'd all discuss. It didn't have to be in the physical paper, I think we can just put it on the website, announce that we can put it on the,
Alan's been talking about getting together for years, so let's collaborate a little bit and work together and use that to do it. And they cut it, and it's been really nice.
I would suggest if we could put it and announce that we can keep it under quorum if we need to do that. Everybody know that extra time. Who would come to a meeting like that if we got the school board involved in the zoning? I'd want to be there. Would you be able to do that? Okay. Can we not legally put it on the Wednesday or Thursday, invite them to come to join us?
I have to look to see, something tells me no, because that'd be too easy just to put on the website, hey, we're having a meeting, and
Not our website, not our website. The local arm has, I thought as long as they're aware of it and they can publicize it in their websites or wherever they have.
on there,
I think we've done that road before, check it and see.
Yeah, what about that following week? 19th, 20th, 21st, who is it? We meet on the 18th, but
what's in circulation.
I was trying to get together us first.
Everybody doesn't have access.
Tell you what,
Because the only thing is everybody doesn't have access to the online part of the paper. That's
yeah,
what
I was
you're
just
saying.
thinking we looked at before, and we found that we were legal if we made it public through the arm, through the printed paper. But as long as they knew about it and it was on their website with it, I thought we were legal. I think we've been down that road before. That ring a bell to you, Tim? No?
I mean, maybe for an emergency type meeting.
Right.
Not
Yeah, that might be it.
a plan.
Maybe that's what it is. All right, let's see. I won't be here the 19th. We have a meeting on the 18th. How about we did something that it might give more time for everybody else anyway? How about we do something on the 25th, 26th, 27th, the last week of the month? Gives everybody more time to plan.
get close to the Atlanta.
Yeah, but we're talking about just a two-hour workshop, and they would come join us. Not having a February meeting anyway.
but that's after your meeting on the 18th.
But that, I think that's better anyway. The 18th, we need to finalize our input on these zoning things. That's one issue we're talking about. The other is the growth issue. And how can they help us with that, discuss that, what you were talking about. And that's what we need the school board and the zoning board. Hey, these are the growth issues, these are our roads aren't going to be ready for this time, our schools, are you going to be ready? So let's work on cleaning up the zoning on the 18th as much as
Early on the
possible.
18th or before?
I'd say let's meet before
Before.
4 o'clock.
Year before?
4 o'clock on the 18th, workshop to discuss these zoning presentation.
That'll give you but an hour. That'll give you but an hour.
We could continue that out.
And we can continue that in the meeting if we need to, but it just gives us some extra time.
I can do 30, if you guys want to do 3 days.
What's the, brothers, we want to meet at 3?
Show up whenever y'all say, I'm good.
I don't think you get much accomplished in an hour.
All right, let's
That will
meet.
be gone.
I hear you, let's set it for 3. Plan to have dinner for us, please. We'll need something to eat between then and the meeting that night.
Our new facility.
And our new facility.
That's supposed to be a light day.
What's that?
The 18th was supposed
I
to be
can't
a
hear
light
you.
day.
Pretty much.
Oh, I'm sorry. The
It's in the
18th is
meeting.
supposed to be the light day. What?
It is in the meeting will be like.
But we can set up that in the training room, I think, and then move it into just the regular meeting format.
And if it's a light meeting, then we'll be done by 6 and we'll go home. Okay? Keep the meeting light, we'll be done by 6 and we'll go home. So 3 o'clock we'll meet, try to thoroughly hash out, clean up, do the things we need to do. Yeah, we won't be as tired going into the tonight. Work on that, and then we'll try to work with the other organizations to see if we can get something scheduled the last week of January. And they probably need more time to plan anyway. They were probably presumptuous to think they could meet in the next week or two.
Really bird dog that would be great. At least, even if everybody says they don't stop anything. Hey, we met with the school board. Hey, we met with the planning board. We've got something to fall back on. It's not just on our heads.
So let's look at the 25th through the 28th that week. That Monday I'll be traveling back from a long ways off, so I'll be available that Tuesday through the 28th. Tim, could y'all look at that, see if the Board of Education would like to be involved, the zoning board be involved, to discuss growth and development in the county.
Do we have another date for a meeting with the zoning people?
And do they need to be at our workshop? I would think they would, our consultant on the 18th. They need to be at our workshop, right?
We can see if we can be there.
We can ask them.
That'd be great if we could.
Have you paid it yet?
Put it all in check, Billy.
Yeah, they might want to show up.
Well, I mean, I would say for sure we can figure out a way to facilitate them, because in that building, we have,
They can phone me in.
a high-end teleconference system in there, so
They'll Zoom in.
we'd be able to get them there no matter what.
You can usually all be on Zoom, but maybe.
That's the
Jeff does that
18th
too.
at 3.
They're talking into their sound systems, come to ours, we can hear better versus that little bubble out there.
So 18th, 3.
Okay, 18, 3 o'clock, and then we're going to get our staff to try to put together a workshop to discuss growth with our Board of Education and our zoning.
Stay good.
What was the date range for that?
'25th, '26th, '27th, '28th.
Okay.
When do we go to when?
31st.
31st. We check in that day, or we check in Sunday?
Check in on Monday.
Monday.
Check in at 10 in the morning?
No, check-in's on Monday.
Okay.
The meeting,
What time can you check in?
We don't start it until Tuesday.
Meeting that starts on Tuesday? No, meeting starts on Tuesday. I mean, Monday at 2.
Monday at 2, right, so
Do
we
we have an
try.
agenda or anything,
Not yet.
or a schedule,
I don't
like
think
all
so.
that
I
you're talking
thought I
about?
saw the chamber had given us something.
Let me look back.
I think the chamber's given us a schedule on their website or whatever.
Are we supposed to set up our own rooms, or?
No, it's all already done.
So we're
That's done already.
go meet and then check in?
Yes.
Let's go somewhere.
Yeah, why don't you just check on the rooms for Sunday?
It's not gonna happen, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
What time does it start on Monday?
2. And if we could get there on Monday, on Monday, we could get together if we met in the lobby. I've done that before with councils, because you couldn't get a room. I mean,
It's done at lunch on Tuesday?
Hmm?
It's done at lunchtime on Tuesday?
Yeah, it's a really quick trip, isn't it? Check and see if we can get rooms on that Monday. I think probably the GMA we probably can,
Time you get up there, you turn your back.
yeah. All right. Oh, it's late. Tim, anybody else have anything else?
I got that.
Okay. Ms. Stephanie?
I'll send an email. I do have something about a training related to the agenda management, the voting component of it for the new meeting room, but I'll send an email. Just note, January 12th is a training day, so please kind of block it out. And do take your laptops home with you so that you can use your laptops for that training.
Okay.
January 12th.
January 12th,
Is what?
a training
For y'all?
For staff.
for y'all.
How long does it last?
It's probably about 30 minutes.
What's it for?
Well, well, you.
Remote, or we meet, or just
From
remote?
your computer, it's gonna be Zoom, and it's with
So
Unicode.
you gonna send us stuff on
Yep,
But it's not a set time, I mean, any time that day.
It is a set
Set time,
time.
this is
I'll
zoned.
give it to you. Hold on, I'll tell you.
So Wednesday the 12th, we get.
Wednesday the 12th at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, even if I pay for my room on Sunday, I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
And try to do all that on Monday.
January 12th.
January 12th, what time?
4 o'clock. This is computer stuff. You probably don't want to participate in this.
Give him a shot.
He sent his computer back.
Oh, that's computer, I got all mine right here. Hey,
But some of this training is on our new system, though, isn't it?
Yes.
I said,
He's gonna need it.
He said,
He's got a computer house, just give
no,
us
you
a.
go. He said, no, you got to use this computer. I said, no. I said, I've got my computer right here.
Yeah, all you,
Well, you don't have to use it sometime. I said, I don't know about that. We'll talk about that later. So he took
anything
it
else?
up. So he moved it.
Anything from commission tonight?
Do what?
Anything from commission? I'm just checking to see if there's anything from the commission tonight.
What's that?
Anything from anybody to share?
No, I'm fine.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good, just want to keep that workshop day nailed down, so I can put something else.
Okay. Y'all can get that out to us the next couple of days, that'd be great, or this weekend. Okay.
Conglomerate.
Call me about that 12th thing.
And,
Yeah, I didn't talk about that.
Mr. Floyd, you got anything?
I'm like, sure.
All right.
I'll fix that.
Is there any need for executive session tonight? Okay. So is there any executive session meeting?
Minutes, yes. I
Okay.
gave them to you.
Oh, I see it right here. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Deloche to approve the executive session minutes as presented, second by Mr. Burdette. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, it passes. Is there any other business for the order tonight? If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Deloche, second by Mr. Loper to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, we are